Podmortem would like to thank Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Original Cinematic is an independent production company that has made it their mission to create, produce, and promote films that are inclusive, honor women, promote the LGBTQIA+ community, and provide prominent positions and roles to POC actors and filmmakers, and promote the films of marginalized and underrepresented populations. These are all things that are extremely important to our podcast as well.
Original Cinematic is currently accepting scripts and treatments. Both William and Xxena Rush are also available via email or Zoom to discuss writing and provide input and resources to all aspiring writers free of charge. Their information will be made available in the show notes. There may be delays due to a hectic schedule and all projects being read on a first-come, first-served basis, but everything will be read and responded to. William Rush has individually produced numerous projects, including Pack is Here, Before, The Cottage, The Winemaker, and Day by Day. Their award-winning film Group premiered and was celebrated at multiple film festivals as well as screenings both in person and via Zoom that was graciously made available to us and our patrons.
Original Cinematic has many exciting projects on the horizon. Their next film, Immersion, has been completed. The award-winning Sweetener is in development. Fetish begins shooting in September, and Encore will begin next spring. Their documentary, Women in Conversation, is slated for a September release, and we are looking forward to each and every one of them. It is truly an honor to partner with Original Cinematic, and we can't thank them enough for their contribution to our show. And now, back to our regularly scheduled program. Salutations! Welcome to Podmortem. I'm Travis Hunter, joined as always by my co-host, my sister, and my brother-in-law.
Hi, I'm Reneé Hunter Vasquez.
Hi, I'm John Paul Vasquez.
This week, we're broadcasting live from a mysterious mansion, discussing the 1959 horror film, House on Haunted Hill. This film was directed by William Castle from a screenplay by Rob White. House on Haunted Hill would mark Castle's second foray into the horror genre, laying the groundwork for the B-movie legend he would become. With a simple story, a stellar cast including the iconic Vincent Price, a sinister score, terrifying thrills, fantastic frights, and Castle's signature cinema gimmickry, this film would not only attain financial success upon its release, but it would also inspire many prominent filmmakers through the years and is widely considered a horror classic. This film was suggested to us by friends of the show, Brian, Alan Johnston, and Beth Bauer. We'd like to thank each of them for their continued support of the show, as well as this suggestion. So, House on Haunted Hill. What were your first impressions on the film?
So I knew this existed, of course, because of the remake, but I had never seen this, so, I mean, obviously it's the first time watching it. But I was very, very surprised how much how faithful the remake kind of stayed to what's going on, or scenes that happen in this movie.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun. This, I'll be completely honest, is the very first time I've ever watched a Vincent Price movie from beginning to end. But this was really cool, and this threw me for a loop that I wasn't expecting. So I was very surprised.
Yeah, I know that I've watched this as a kid because our mom is a huge Vincent Price fan, but my recollection of it, this may as well have been the first watch. I've talked extensively about how the 1999 House on Haunted Hill changed my entire perception of reality.
Yeah.
Watching it in the theater at 10 years old, it fucked me up. Like, I will always hold a special place in my heart for that film. And honestly, watching this gave me even more kind of love and respect for it, because you see how they take things that happen in this film and utilize them in a new way. But it was all born here. So it is really cool to see kind of the original and where that came from. Some of the stuff that I was a little surprised, one outfit and a couple things that they were doing. I was surprised at 1959. Not at 19, but that they were doing it in 1959. But it was very entertaining. It was a lot of fun. The ending was not what I remembered it to be, but it was still a blast. Vincent Price is king. He's always entertaining. I was very surprised by one aspect that we were talking about off mic a little bit that we can't mention for a while. But that really, like you were saying, threw me for a loop. I wasn't expecting that. But overall, it was a really good time. And it's always really fun to go back and watch these older ones and see where so much came from. And William Castle is always wild. You know what I mean?
No, I completely agree. I know that I saw this when I was a kid for the same exact reasons that you said. Mom is a huge fan of Vincent Price and as well the fun of William Castle films. And so I know that we watched this. All that I really took from it and remembered from it is one visual at the end that is very on brand for me.
Okay.
But that's all.
Same.
Yeah.
That's all I remembered.
But it was that remake that we did see in theaters, and I honestly, my 8-year-old brain and body was not ready.
Did you go to sleep?
I was so spent from having watched it because it was a double feature. We watched House on Haunted Hill in 1999, and then there was a showing of The Green Mile.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second The Green Mile started, I think
That's what you
I was just like, nope, checked out.
The Green Mile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It's a very odd double feature.
Yeah.
Like, these films are just alike.
No, seriously, I really think that night changed the course of my life.
Honestly.
I literally felt changed walking out of that theater.
I also knew that I wasn't going to be able to sleep that night alone. And
Yeah.
so if I was sleeping in a room full of people, I'm like, I better catch these
Better
Z's while I
rest
can.
now.
But I agree with what you said, JP, about watching this one and seeing all of these elements and scenes and moments that were reimagined and paid respect to in the remake.
Yeah.
And it does, like Nate said, make you respect the filmmakers of the remake for what they were able to do with this material. But that's not to say that this material itself isn't fantastic.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will say we did cover House on Haunted Hill 1999 back on episode 34.
Yeah.
So if you want to hear Baby Pod Mortem talk about these things,
Yeah.
Or don't.
or,
you know,
well, either way, whatever you're in the mood for.
whatever you want to do.
But you watch this, and what I see is just such fun, campy horror. It's a B movie. It's a blast. That's what B stands for to me.
Yeah.
Blast movie.
Blast movie. I think that this version is so much fun, and it's got these really hilarious moments that are kind of understated and very well performed by its cast.
Oh, yeah.
But also just the fact of you look at the performance of Vincent Price in anything, and he raises the bar of everything.
Yeah.
Like, even if everybody else didn't show up and Vincent Price was the only one who did, it's
like, it's fine.
Yeah. But everyone did show up.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic cast. I think that another thing that this film doesn't really get all that much credit for that I think it should is there are actually a couple of genuinely frightening visuals.
Yeah.
Like, there are a couple of moments that even me at like 33 in 2024, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, there's one site in a cellar with a low light
Yeah.
that I was like, this visual and the movement of a certain person is quite frightening
Yeah.
and potentially influential on a lot of things that we know and love that came after it.
Okay.
And so it's just, like you said, very interesting to see where a lot of these ideas probably came from. But I think that the music is fantastic. It's such a character as well on its own. The sets, these gags, I will say there are moments that I was laughing out loud. And I don't know if it was intentional or not.
Yeah.
But I really had a lot of fun. But I think that's kind of the point of a film like this, or at least William Castle films, is I think he really just wanted to create an experience of fun at the theater.
Yeah.
And even from the very first moment of the film, you're like, I can't even imagine 1959.
Yeah.
Sitting there and seeing and hearing all of this. But 65 years later, it all still works in a very special way.
Yeah.
65 years.
Yeah.
And I know I've said it before, but it is nice, like you're saying, T, to see 59. What was scary
Yeah.
1959, or what was like, what would the minds have to been in the theater when you finish this movie and then you're like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, and to me, I think that's the kind of lens that you should watch this through.
Yeah.
Because if you watch it through like a contemporary lens, you're not going to really get to appreciate what this film is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you show your kids like movies from the
exactly-
80s
Yeah.
and it's like, no, that looks no.
No, that's the greatest thing you've ever seen in your life.
Right, I know he's a talking duck.
Doesn't
Be
matter.
quiet. You pay respect.
But I did want to talk a little bit about the production because it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
All of this information I got from an autobiography by William Castle called Step Right Up.
Okay.
I also got some info from a documentary about William Castle called Spine Tingler and an article in Film Facts magazine from 1990. It was an interview with Rob White, the co-writer.
Very cool.
So, the story of House on Haunted Hill actually begins, very interestingly, back in 1956. After 15 years of working for Columbia Pictures, directing over 20 feature films, William Castle kind of grew tired of the studio system and he wanted to make something that was actually his. What kept happening at Columbia is he was just given scripts, like they would just land on his desk and they're like, you're directing this, go.
Man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was things that he had fun making and he learned a lot from making, but it wasn't his passion.
Yeah.
And so he made a lot of film noirs. He made some sword and sandals films. He made some drama films.
Okay.
But none of it was really exactly what he was looking to direct.
I was going to ask, because if he's just churning them out, like what kind of movies and like what quality? What is it?
It was all over the place as far as genre was concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that he kind of gained a reputation for was being able to take all of these B movies and actually, with their low budgets, turn them into something of quality.
Okay.
And the sad thing that his daughter talked about a lot in the documentary was his aspirations of creating an A film.
Mm-hmm.
But he was so kind of pigeonholed in B
Yeah.
movies. We even talked about this on the episode of Rosemary's Baby,
Yeah.
where he was like, this is going to be my A movie. And they're like, never mind. We're going to give it to...
God.
And it happened to him as well at Columbia, I think in 1943. He found a book and he's like, this is going to be my A movie. And he showed it to his friend, Orson Welles. And Orson Welles took it to the head of Columbia, and the head of Columbia loved it. And he's like, and you're directing it.
Wow. Here, I'll hold that for you.
Yeah.
It's wild.
We are no longer friends.
No. And so he decides it's time to leave Columbia. And I will say there was the interview with Rob White where he had said that Castle was fired from Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, he's on his own and he's going to do his own thing.
Yeah.
But after he leaves Columbia, he drives past a movie theater and he sees a bunch of people lined up down the street. And he's like, what magnificent genre could inspire such a thing?
Yeah.
And it was Les Diaboliques. It's a horror film.
Oh.
Yeah.
So horror. And he's
Yeah.
like, there's a hunger for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this gives him an idea. And then in 1957 is when he teams up with Rob White to self-finance his first horror picture, a film called Macabre that was released in 1958. And when I say self-financed, he mortgaged his house to pay for it.
Wow.
And so he bet on himself, and the film ends up getting distributed by Allied Artists. On a budget of $90,000, the film makes over $1 million in its first year.
Okay.
And so this is very, very exciting, of course.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just the film itself that inspired this box office return. It was partially due to Castle's marketing tactics.
Okay.
For Macabre, he did everything up to and including filling cinema lobbies with fake nurses, parking hearses outside of theaters, and offering a $1,000 life insurance policy should a viewer die of fright while watching it.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so this Macabre debut and box office return is proof of concept for William Castle, and it kind of shows him the power of showmanship. And he had said in his autobiography that after the success of this, he says, I was determined to mine it over and over again.
Okay.
I mean,
And so everybody was kind of surprised at how well Macabre did. And Allied Pictures, the second it became successful, they wanted another Castle film immediately. And theaters wanted another Castle gimmick immediately.
All right.
And so on Castle's end, he decides to team up with Rob White again, and they come up with the story for House on Haunted Hill. For Castle, he said that he was trying to capture a good old-fashioned haunted house story while also paying tribute to the campfire tales that he grew up on. For White, he had said that he was tasked with coming up with the full story that fit into that. And interestingly and unsurprisingly, if you've seen House on Haunted Hill, White was going through a divorce at the time. I wonder if that is felt.
All right.
So we got the old Zhuovsky treatment. Got it.
Yeah. But it was after everything is all rolling. Castle has a chance meeting with Vincent Price that we'll talk about later because it's a very interesting story. But the studio also tasked him with coming up with this cinema gimmick. And we will discuss this later, and the story of it will emerge a bit later.
Okay.
Right.
But Castle told a story that was very funny of the first time that he watched House on Haunted Hill in a theater. He had said that whenever you're the director of a film and you do a preview screening, you're given this area that's like VIP where you're away from the audience and you can kind of watch it in peace. And he's like, as a director, I never wanted to do that. He's like, I wanted to be down in the audience with my people.
Well, yeah.
The viewers. And so he's watching House on Haunted Hill and he's sitting next to this older man and he's looking around and he's realizing that this is not the right audience for this film.
Mm-hmm.
And the old man next to him is getting restless and it's making him nervous, which is making the old man annoyed that he is getting so nervous because he doesn't know who William Castle is. He's like, will you stop fidgeting? And they're just like going back and forth. But the film finally ends and William Castle turns to the old man. The old man just tells him, that's the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen in my life. And so William Castle said, from that point forward, I stayed in the VIP area. But he realized, I need to market to my audience.
Yeah.
And he said, who is the audience for this film? Young teens that will lose their mind about what's happening on screen.
Right.
And so that was how it eventually became marketed, and that leads into his gimmick that came a little bit later, leads to massive success of House on Haunted Hill, which interestingly brought William Castle back to Columbia Pictures. The success of it, they wanted him back.
Yeah.
Of course.
And they would finance a lot of his films through William Castle Productions.
Well, good.
Yeah.
But very interestingly, the legacy of this film, William Castle as a figure and a B-movie icon, he would influence directors like Robert Zemeckis, John Waters, and very interestingly, this is 1959.
Uh-huh.
And so 2 horror films under his belt, lower budget B movies. Somebody saw the success of this and was very inspired to try it himself.
Mm-hmm.
And this person was Alfred Hitchcock.
I knew it.
And that's one of the main driving factors of what made him make Psycho.
Wow.
Okay. How cool, though, that his marketing tactics, what he was doing with the theaters.
Yeah.
I know that we got some of that, like with Blair Witch, the marketing for that was really cool. And the way they marketed Smile, I remember, wasn't bad. That was cool.
That's why it's like, bring that back.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Long Legs, the marketing was really cool.
Yes.
But it's like, do more of that.
I feel like it is a lost art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the horror genre in particular, a lot of it can be traced back to William Castle.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, before we invite this film to our party, we would like to issue a warning for spoilers. Pod Mortem is a very in-depth podcast, and in thoroughly discussing horror films, we have no choice but to spoil a thing or two. If you don't wish to be spoiled, please go watch the film, then come back and enjoy the show. If you've already seen the film or don't care about spoilers, let's try to stay the night. So the film begins with the opening credits, a pale white against a black background. A woman's screams echo across the darkness, accompanied by ghastly and guttural moans, as well as menacing and maniacal laughter growing in pitch, madness, and volume. Chains rattle amongst the abyss, a door eerily creaks open, and from the shadows, the face of Watson Pritchard, played by Elisha Cook Jr., comes into view and moves right toward us.
Hey, it's Weasel from Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
We talked about him on Rosemary's Baby as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has such an expressive face.
Yeah.
And I think that particularly in this film, because literally the first person that we see is just his face taking up the whole screen, like that one Hives music video. But he looks terrified.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, with this warning, he is basically like, I hate to say I told you so.
All right.
But with a fearfully furrowed brow, Pritchard mutters that the ghosts are moving tonight, restless, hungry. He introduces himself and shares that in just a minute, he'll show us the only truly haunted house in the world. It's a bold statement.
Okay.
Well, but we are getting going already.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, the screaming and the moaning right out the gate, I was like, okay.
I thought of being like I was 8 years old watching the remake. If that's the first thing that I hear, this black screen and just these wails and screaming and chains, I'm like, I think I'm done, guys.
This is going to be terrifying.
But Pritchard reveals that since the house was built a century ago, 7 people, including his brother, have been murdered in it. And since then, Pritchard has owned the house, admitting that he's only spent one night there, and when they found him in the morning, he was almost dead. His face disappears into the darkness once again, replaced by a large, sprawling manor, with towering textile blocks, delicate designs etched in stone, windows framed within walls, and a welcoming and ornate gate at the end of a long driveway. The macabre mansion stands menacingly in the night. But accompanied by a tense piano chord in the score, we see the somewhat transparent visage of Frederick Loren, played by the legend himself, Vincent Price.
Yeah.
Just iconic.
Yeah.
We were talking off mic and we're like, just an actor. Like,
Yeah.
even his voice, it's just, he's incredible.
It's wild to consider this is the first film we've ever covered on the show with Vincent Price in it.
Yeah.
But in the context of his career, interestingly, he had been acting since the late 1930s.
Damn.
And he had starred in The Fly the year before this came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was kind of cast in this by chance, I read. In Castle's autobiography, he had said that he was going to a coffee shop near Samuel Goldwyn Studios, and just in the coffee shop was Vincent Price. And so he went and he started a conversation with him. I guess that he had met him in the past, and so he asked if he remembered him, and Vincent Price apologized because he didn't.
Yeah.
But he said that as they continued talking, Vincent Price told him that he was depressed. And Castle asked him why. And he said that he actually lost out on a role recently. What happened is he was supposed to be, I think it was in a Western, and it was supposed to be him and Jimmy Stewart. But Jimmy Stewart fell ill, and so the studio decided to recast Jimmy Stewart's part with an actor that was way shorter than Jimmy Stewart, and they were afraid that Vincent Price as the villain would tower over this new actor. And so they recast him too.
What?
I had looked him up because he looks very tall in this movie. He's 6'4", or he was 6'4".
Damn.
That's wild.
Because looking at him, I was like, this dude looks fucking
Yes.
I was like,
And
oh
it's
my
not
God.
something you think about.
No.
Yeah, but it's just funny that you said that because I noticed it watching this.
Yeah.
He looks tall as hell.
But they kept talking, and Castle told him very poetically, Mr. Price, fate has brought us together on this rainy night. And Vincent Price was like, go on.
Whatever you have next, yes.
And he told him, he said, and this is what's interesting, he said, in a few weeks, we're starting production on this film called House on Haunted Hill. So this is how close in proximity.
Jeez.
Damn.
And so he told him the whole plot. And as he's talking, Vincent Price is enjoying his coffee. And then he orders a slice of pie. And he's enjoying the piece of pie, just listening to the plot of the film, asking about his character, where he goes, what happens to him, becoming more and more interested. He orders a second piece of pie.
By the second piece of pie, you got to be like, I got him.
Yeah.
And that's what Castle said. He said the deal was made over a second slice of pie.
That's so
Okay.
cool. And we love an oversharing king. It's so funny that he's like, do you remember me? No. I'm really depressed.
Let me tell you about my life.
I love it.
Hey, they were meant to run into each other.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they would work together again. He was in Castle's The Tingler, which was the same year as House on Haunted Hill.
Okay.
It was also released in 1959.
Damn.
But this was years before Price's collaborations with Roger Corman, the Poe adaptations, Pit and the Pendulum, House of Usher, Mask of the Red Death, The Raven, which features a young Jack Nicholson, by the way.
Oh.
But a lot of critics point to this film as the one that would establish Vincent Price as a horror star and lead to all of these other projects.
Love it.
Yeah.
And something very interesting I read in that interview with Rob White. He had said that Vincent Price, his Vincent Price was $12,000 to appear in the film.
Mm-hmm.
But William Castle...
That was good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Castle insisted on giving him a piece of the box office instead. And so Vincent Price made bank.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
But Frederick, with his steely stare and pointed mustache, introduces himself to us, explaining that he's rented the house on Haunted Hill tonight so that he and his wife can give a party. A haunted house party. He chuckles sardonically, commenting that his wife is so amusing. But he continues that there will be food and drink and ghosts and even perhaps a few murders.
Where do I sign?
There's more. You're going to get really excited. He states that we're all invited and that if any of us can spend 12 hours in this house, he will give us each $10,000 or our next of kin in case we don't survive.
I'm in.
Yeah.
But he disappears in a "that's all, folks" styled circle wipe.
The editing was sending me.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
very funny.
It was a choice. But we dissolve and we see the guests of the party start to arrive. On a curved road, a series of hearses round the corner, their headlights piercing the night, as Frederick explains that it was his wife's idea for guests to arrive in funeral cars. And these cars, I believe, are old Cadillac hearses.
Mm-hmm.
They're beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, me and your wife would be friends. Like, if this is her, that's fucking cool.
But Frederick chuckles wryly at his wife's idea, once again commenting, "She's so amusing," and calling her sense of humor so original. Like, he hates her.
Yeah. What's going on here? Yeah.
Well, what you told us at the beginning, Rob White's like, everybody like, you know that feeling when you fucking hate your wife?
There's
But you
even-
can't tell people you hate your wife?
There's even a line later that's like, "Calm down."
He's working through some
It's
shit.
not even Vincent Price's voice anymore. It's
It's like, who the hell is that?
Rob White did some ADR. But as the fleet of classic Cadillac hearses come closer, Frederick adds that he dreamed of the hearse, which is empty now, but after a night in the house on Haunted Hill, who knows?
Ooh.
Yeah.
We then enter the back seat of one of the hearses, introduced to Lance Schroeder, a test pilot played by Richard Long. As Lance sits there in his suit, with his slicked hair and smoking a cigarette, Frederick remarks that Lance is no doubt a brave man, but asks if we think a person could be much braver if paid for it. Frederick knows for a fact that Lance needs the $10,000 he'll give him, if he's brave enough to stay the night, that is. And we don't learn why Lance needs the money.
Yeah, no.
Just for the record. But in the next hearse, we meet Ruth Bridgers, played by Julie Mitchum. And Julie Mitchum is actually the sister of Robert Mitchum.
Oh.
And she is a fantastic actress in her own right, I must say.
Yeah, I will apologize. I went through and looked at a lot of these actors that were in this movie, but a lot of them, again, at least 25 to 30 years before my time. Like, you know what I mean? I'm going to be 40, but that's like even further than from before. So it is, I couldn't really find too much that I was familiar with or that I could draw back to.
The concept of this character is really cool, and you can see how it translates into the original. Into the original, the original to me, no, into the 99 remake. But I feel like they give her almost nothing to do.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And there are even times that I forget she's here.
No, literally.
A few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when she's there, you're like, she's good.
She
Yeah.
is.
But Frederick explains that Ruth is a columnist who claims that her reason for coming to this party is to write a feature article on ghosts. As Ruth sits seemingly unimpressed, annoyance etched under her thin eyebrows, Frederick is sure to add that Ruth is also desperate for money and has a gambling problem.
What the fuck was that?
It's like, are you writing a column?
Yeah. What?
You'd have to spill the tea on it.
What was that?
But in the following hearse, we're reintroduced to Watson Pritchard, who sits nervously under his black hat. Frederick remarks that Pritchard has lived in fear of this house, and yet he's willing to risk his life to spend another night here. Frederick wonders why, even though Pritchard says that it's simply for the money. In the next car, we find Dr. David Trent, a psychiatrist played by Alan Marshall. Trent swallows, perhaps downing his fear, as Frederick acknowledges Trent's claim that a night in this haunted house will help his work on hysteria. But Frederick seems to notice instead a touch of greed around Trent's mouth and eyes, asking if we see it too. Interesting.
Yeah.
But in the last car, we meet Nora Manning, a young woman played by Carolyn Craig. Frederick himself picked her among the hundreds of people who work for him, as she needs the money more than most. He adds that she supports her whole family, and then adds, "Isn't she pretty?"
Going from car to car and him being like, she has a gambling problem. He looks greedy as fuck. Nora's a broke bitch. Like it was killing me.
Yeah.
Because he's like, look, let's establish everything before
Well, I did enjoy this. This was a very interesting and fast way to give us a little bite-sized description of everybody we're meeting tonight so we don't have to later.
Mm-hmm.
I have in my notes, as John Paul would say, this is right up my ass.
Yeah.
I really, really do. I don't know what it is because obviously this is giving Clue. And obviously one of my favorite films. But I'm like, what is this? Did it originate here? I wonder, or was it popularized here? But this premise of gathering strangers together under monetary pretenses or false pretenses or whatever, I love that. I want more of that. It's like that film that I get side-eyed for bringing up so much. Would You Rather?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. It's all right.
The excellent film. I don't know what it is about shut up, about that premise. I just really enjoy it.
They discussed a bit of an Agatha Christie influence. And I think that's such a fascinating element of a lot of mystery stories, is just this bringing together of these strangers.
Yeah. Well, you saying Agatha Christie, now I'm thinking Identity.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that shit. Recommend me more of that, please.
I will say they don't really do it here very much, but I think that our draw to that is when they start discussing and discovering why they're related or why they were brought here. That's not an element in this film, really. That comes in the remake, though.
Yes, it does.
That's true. And maybe somebody might be named Louisiana.
All right. I fucking hope not. I will say though, in all fairness, there is like a couple of conversations in this film where they're like, well, why do you know him or whatever?
Yeah.
But there isn't much of a real payoff there towards that.
Yeah.
But the bringing them together is fun.
It is.
Yeah.
But as the vehicles arrive in front of the mansion, Frederick shares that the party is starting now, and we have until midnight to find the house on Haunted Hill. To a musical flourish, including an eerie theremin, we get the title in white, House on Haunted Hill. So, firstly, the exteriors of this house, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
It is a real house filmed at a real mansion in California. It's called the Ennis House, and it's actually a historical landmark in California.
Okay.
It was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright and built in 1924, exactly 100 years ago.
Oh.
Which is really interesting because Pritchard at the beginning said the house was built 100 years ago.
Oh.
All right.
It was meant to be.
Mhm.
Yeah. So where the remake house? Who built that one?
I think
The devil.
I mean, in all fairness. But I will say that the exteriors are used for these purposes that we see of these establishing shots. The interiors are all sets.
Right.
Okay.
They're built on the Allied Artist Studios, I believe. But the cool thing about this house, you see these really intricate designs. There are over 27,000 individually patterned granite blocks in this house.
Holy
God
shit.
damn.
And it was used in a lot of projects after this. You might recognize it from Blade Runner. It was
Okay.
also used in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Hey.
And I read that they made tile casts of these designs, and they used it for the outside of Club Silencio in Mulholland Drive.
How fucking cool.
But the hearses pull past the gate as the opening credits continue, an organ howling over pensive brass instruments as the group of guests gather together. Pritchard, Nora, Ruth, Trent, and Lance all exchanging glances and silent greetings as they clutch their bags and head through the opened gates, which slowly creak closed behind them after they've made it inside. I will say this score is one of my favorite horror scores maybe ever.
It's
All right.
so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so fun. The organ, the theremin, the instrumentation,
Mm-hmm.
the way that it punctuates moments.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
It was composed by a guy called Von Dexter, and he actually composed a score for 13 Ghosts, Mr. Sardonicus, and The Tingler, all for William Castle.
Oh.
This Tingler, I get more interested.
Intrigued.
Yeah.
That's a wild, wild, wild movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing it as a kid. And it's one of Mom's favorites.
All right.
Sounds spine tingly dingly.
All right. And I will say, I tried to look up more on Von Dexter, and I search his name alone, and you get these soundtracks. And I think Rob Zombie is helping to release this soundtrack again on vinyl, which is very cool of him.
Oh.
But if you put his name in quotes to try to find anything more, you just get the German Wikipedia page for Showtime's Dexter. And that didn't help at all.
I was going to say, well, did you read it?
Well, Von Dexter is... I mean, I don't know. 9. I did not.
Yeah.
But the camera pans across the facade of the house, the decorative tiles catching shadows as we dip down, finding Trent surveying the lights of the city at a distance over the hill. A cymbal crashes in the score as Lance tests a nearby gate, smirking at its strength when he's unable to move it. But the group reconvenes on the veranda as the front door seemingly opens on its own, the camera pressing into it and revealing the entryway. A staircase is carved out of the corner of the room, a side table to the left, with a large chandelier hanging overhead. Cobwebs cover surfaces, furniture, and light fixtures, the group of 5 glancing around as they make their way inside. Lance sets his things down first, asking where everybody is, Nora commenting that it isn't a very warm welcome at all. Pritchard mutters that only the ghosts are glad that they're here, and Trent can't hide his exasperation.
Who invited this guy?
Still clutching her bag with both hands, Ruth asks the group if they're all in fact strangers to each other, but supposes for some reason that Lance and Nora know each other. Considering they don't, the 2 young people introduce themselves to each other, locking eyes for a bit too long as they shake hands.
It was a moment.
Yeah.
They fell in love right there.
Yeah.
Hey, and I just realized something.
Huh.
So if he said that Nora was the only one he picked, but Pritchard owns the house, he wasn't even invited? Because I know in the remake it's random.
The way he
but
said
the
it.
way he said it, like
He-
I handpicked her. Well, what about the rest of them?
I think he handpicked her from his employees, and I guess everyone else is just...
okay.
But I don't understand like how they were decided upon,
Uh-huh.
because it wasn't his wife's idea, and there wasn't some like computer that had the devil in it or whatever.
Not here.
Not here.
Yeah,
Not in this one. So that is a good question.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that's really what this film is missing.
I just love that the house saw the guest list and they're like, no.
Let's
No.
fix that.
Miss Melissa Moore or whatever. You know? But Ruth asks if Frederick Loren is a friend of theirs, and Lance admits that he's only heard of him, but he's never met him. Nora, sidling up closely to Lance, shares that she works for one of Frederick's companies, but she's never seen him before.
The amusement part?
I would hope so.
Ooh.
Ruth says that she's never met Frederick either and only spoke to him over the phone. And when asked if he knows him, Trent simply scoffs and replies, no. It's like, cool.
All right.
But the group turns their attention to Pritchard, realizing that he's the only one among them who has ever met Frederick before. But Pritchard, too, joins the chorus of strangers. He's never met Frederick either. In fact, all the details of renting the house were accomplished by mail. Trent comments on Frederick's wealth, Ruth co-signing Frederick's millions. And when Trent shares the details of Frederick's 5 wives, Ruth corrects him that it's only been 4 so far. But Trent believes that a $50,000 party for 5 people is steep, even for a millionaire.
So at this point, I was like, okay, how much money is that today?
Mm-hmm.
After just a quick Google search, okay, $50,000 to promise all of these people today is $530,702.42.
Oh, shit.
God damn.
So he's dangling for each of them $106,140.48.
Yeah, we'd be staying here.
I'm saying, honestly, when I tell you, I'd probably just do it for the 10 in today's money.
Oh, no shit.
That's fine.
I don't need inflation.
No.
But it does beg the question from the remake. What good is $1 million if you're dead? So
No,
maybe,
yeah.
maybe don't be, we're all broke bitches in this room. Maybe we got to think logically.
But Lance nods in agreement with Trent's sentiment as the group disperses slightly from their huddle around the table in the entryway. He supposes that if he were going to haunt anybody, this would certainly be the house to do it. But just as he says this, the front door slams shut all on its own, and the chandelier begins to sway above their heads, the garish glass glittering and clinking in motion. Nora asks fearfully who closed the door, and the score rises tensely around them as Lance marches towards the door to check the doorknob, only to find that it's locked. Unable to open it, Lance is surprised to find that the door is made of solid steel. But as the chandelier continues swaying overhead, Lance seems to notice its supports weakening, and he rushes for Nora, who stands directly underneath it. He pulls her close to him and out of the way just in time as the chandelier crashes from the ceiling and onto the floor below.
They didn't even see that chandelier coming.
All right. Well done. It's yes.
They wasted no time.
No.
Like,
Not at all.
Door slam, chandelier down. Like, God.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I made that joke on Mars Attacks. You thief! No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You just listen to Pod Mortem. It's
I
fine.
do, yeah. I'm a really big fan.
And this is one of the moments that's repurposed in the remake.
Yeah.
And the drama is heightened.
Yeah, with the glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the vibe of everything that they repurpose from this film is they just make it bigger.
Yeah.
But we then see Frederick standing at the landing on the second floor, dressed smartly in a suit, gazing down at his guests over the railing, before turning away with a sinister smile and making his way down an adjacent hall.
This really looks like he orchestrated that shit.
The ominous score accompanies him as he takes another turn, reaching a door at the end of the hall and stepping into a room. Once inside, he calls out to his wife, declaring that their guests are here, and fortunately, still alive. He holds onto the frame of the large wooden bed, calling out to a closed door. Is your face on yet? The door opens, and out from the bathroom steps Annabelle Lauren, Frederick's wife, played by Carol Omar.
I was looking through a biography of her, and they didn't have a lot of information about House on Haunted Hill besides like the chemistry between her and Vincent Price.
Mm-hmm.
But I read that Rob White insisted on her playing this role. I think she's great.
Mm-hmm.
And I love her voice.
Yeah, there's a lot of small moments in her performance.
Yeah.
Like you had said about Elisha Cook.
Yeah.
His facial performance, she does just the same, where she expresses so much.
Yeah. And I got to say, her outfit right here is phenomenal. I was like,
Yeah.
I bet they were clutching their pearls in 1959.
Oh, for sure. But in a flowing robe and a glittery bustier, Annabelle admonishes the place, commenting that it's covered in dirt and dust and the water barely trickles. As she heads over to her suitcase on a nearby desk, she asks her husband why he didn't have the place cleaned. Frederick responds that it's all about the atmosphere, adding that she knows how ghosts are. They never tidy up.
He's not wrong.
When Annabelle pulls a frilly lace number out of her luggage, Frederick approaches her, calling the gown quite fetching, but not exactly suitable for a party. Annabelle states simply that she isn't going to the party, and Frederick reminds her that the whole "you spend the night ghost party" was all her idea, and since it's going to cost him $50,000, he wants her to have fun. Annabelle agrees that the party was her idea, until Frederick invited all the guests. Confused, Annabelle asks why he invited strangers to the party instead of any of their friends, and Frederick struggles to name even one friend of theirs, asking if they have any. Annabelle concurs that they don't, smiling sweetly that Frederick's jealousy took care of that. But Frederick explains that he had a reason for inviting each of their guests tonight, claiming that he wanted a cross-section from psychiatrist to typist, and from drunk to jet pilot. A little judgmental, I'd say.
God damn, dude.
But he says they all share one thing. They all need money. With a smirk, Frederick invites Annabelle to see if their guests are brave enough to earn that money. Annabelle asks if he would call this a party, and Frederick grins that it could be.
This whole little monologue of his felt pretty fucking gross. Because
Yeah.
it's like you're up on your whatever and let's let these peasants own a measly tent. That like, it's just, I was like, sir, you.
It is very weird too that okay, here he's saying that he picked them,
Mm-hmm.
but they are strangers. So you just like just picked random, or
He's
you,
like, I heard about her. She drinks a lot and she gambled away all her money.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like a gambler.
Yeah. Well, send her an
Yeah,
invite.
that guy sounds greedy.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell?
What?
It just feels, I mean, like, again, like you're saying, like, where these rich people are just like, well, we can just do a social experiment with these.
Yeah.
And it's like, ugh.
It's gross.
But it's Vincent Price, and you're like, oh, he's the coolest person alive. Even though he's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's conflicting.
Mm-hmm. But Frederick snags a bottle of champagne from a bucket of ice on the vanity and begins to shake it up. Annabelle questions why Frederick always does that, as it spoils the champagne. But Frederick frets that it might explode. Annabelle reminds him that it never does, and he then arms himself with the bottle, pointing the corked end of the champagne at his wife, asking if she'd guarantee that.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
He inches closer, but Annabelle doesn't find it very funny. Frederick postulates that it would make quite a headline. Playboy kills wife with champagne cork.
Okay, calling yourself a playboy.
Yeah.
He snuck in a compliment.
Gotta boost himself up. Huh?
Super like hot and tall playboy kills his
Who
wife.
could get
or whatever.
any woman he wants? Just a sidebar. Is this still the headline?
It's the dating column.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
But Annabelle just breathes a sigh of annoyance, refusing Frederick's offer to join him for a drink. He uncorks the champagne, pouring 2 glasses, suggesting that Annabelle should join him, as it might improve her humor. He's had a lot to say about her humor.
Yeah.
She's like so amusing.
Annabelle counters that her humor is just fine, and assures her husband that she didn't poison the wine. Frederick admits that this is good to know, and he walks the wine over to his wife. He offers her a glass, guaranteeing that she'll enjoy the party more. Annabelle takes it from him, drinking a small sip as she makes eye contact. She hands the glass back to him, commenting that Frederick's trust is so touching, but she's not going to the party.
So I'm like, he really made her taste it before he would drink it.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
I know that this dynamic is really similar in the remake,
Mm-hmm.
but I was really shocked. Like, their back and forth is dark.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And the remake, they do take it to another level where they're like, remember when you tried to shoot me in the face or whatever?
And she's like, oh, it was an accident.
It starts a little more playful, and then it's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
To me, I was like, oh, you guys don't like each other.
At all.
Frederick laments that of all his wives, Annabelle is the least agreeable, to which Annabelle counters that she's also still alive. Frederick wonders if she'd go away for $1 million tax-free, but Annabelle just smiles and shakes her head, and Frederick understands. She wants it all. Annabelle corrects this. She deserves it all. As Frederick sips his champagne, Annabelle adds that his jealousy isn't tax-free, his possessiveness is maddening. But Frederick believes that he has grounds for divorce, and when Annabelle retorts that he can't prove them, Frederick assures her that the time will come. She'll slip up one of these days, if he lives long enough. He then asks if she remembers the fun they had when she poisoned him.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, that took a turn.
Okay.
Annabelle laughs that it was something that he ate, or at least that's what the doctor said. Frederick recalls it differently. Yes, arsenic on the rocks.
Jeez.
Gulp.
Yeah.
He then seizes her by the shoulders, supposing that she'd do it again if she thought she could get away with it. Unconvincingly, Annabelle asks, "Darling, what makes you think that?" But Frederick unhands her, admitting that it's just something about her. Probably the time she tried to poison her.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
But he remarks that he's heard hanging is very uncomfortable, just in case she gets any more ideas. Interesting.
Very.
Yeah.
Hey, so maybe we should talk about divorce.
Yeah.
Like, this was astounding. And these dead wives, like, I feel like it really opens up a box that we never fully investigate.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah.
But Frederick cautions not to let the ghosts and ghouls disturb her, to which Annabelle smiles that the only ghoul in the house is Frederick.
I love that.
He adds for her not to sit up all night, thinking of ways to get rid of him, as it makes wrinkles. He then opens the door and lets himself out of the room. There is something about dialogue of the 30s, 40s, 50s, where it's just this back and forth, this play.
It's a dance.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it, and I feel like it's a lost art these days, kind of.
Yeah.
But down on the first floor, the group mills about as the score sizzles spookily around them. Pritchard eyes what appears to be a log resting on a table by the fireplace, but he opens it up, revealing a knife inside of the carved-out case. Pritchard snags it and closes the case, startling Lance as he marches toward Ruth, explaining that this is what she used on his brother and her sister.
You're really bringing the vibe down.
Yeah.
We haven't even been greeted yet.
No.
But he says that she hacked them to pieces, and they found parts of the bodies all over the house in places you wouldn't think. But the thing of it is, their heads have never been found. He says the hands and the feet and things like that were, but no heads. Trent suggests that the wife, in a rage, probably threatened her husband with a knife, and then, carried away by hysteria, took a swing at him and simply went on from there. Lance concurs that she definitely went on, asking Pritchard to remind him of how many people she killed, but Pritchard shares that it was only 2, her husband and her sister. Lance cracks wise, asking Pritchard if that means that there are 2 loose heads just floating around here somewhere. The phrase loose heads is wild.
Yeah.
But Pritchard, gazing upward at the ceiling, reveals that you can hear them at night, whispering to each other, crying. Lance just laughs this off and walks away, but Ruth, over Frederick's late arrival, asks if anyone would like to mix her a drink. Trent is glad to play bartender, but before he can take Ruth's order, a door suddenly opens on the other side of the room. With everyone's eyes on him, Frederick enters the room, closing the door behind him and bidding his guests good evening. As he walks past a long table holding a candelabra and 7 decorative boxes that we will definitely get to later, Frederick introduces himself as their host. He suggests as strangers that they should all get acquainted with a drink. Pritchard, however, interrupts these introductions, urging Frederick to call the party off now. He says that the ghosts are already moving around the house, which is a bad sign.
Yeah.
Frederick ignores these warnings, instead apologizing for Annabelle's absence, assuring his guests that she'll arrive later. He obtains drink orders from Ruth and Trent, making them both a scotch and ice as he begins to go over the details of the party. He shares that the caretakers will leave at midnight, locking everyone inside until they come back in the morning. Lance and Nora join the group as Frederick explains that once the doors are locked, there's no way out, claiming that the windows have bars that a jail would be proud of, adding that the only door to outside locks like a vault. He says there's no electricity, no phone, no one within miles, so no one to call for help. Pritchard takes a drink, remarking that it's like a coffin, which seems to amuse Frederick, causing him to pause his spiel for a moment. But he continues, declaring that if anyone decides not to stay for the party, they must let him know before midnight. And of course, if they do, Frederick won't pay them anything for their time spent here. Trent questions Frederick's reasons for throwing this party at all, and Frederick replies simply with a smile. Ghosts, Doctor.
Clearly.
Yeah, but what does that mean?
Pritchard knows.
Yeah.
He supposes everyone wonders what they would do if they saw a ghost, but Pritchard takes a nervous sip of his scotch, as Frederick adds that his wife is giving them all the opportunity to find out. Trent finds this amusing, theorizing that with ghosts and the supernatural being only creations of hysteria, Frederick's party should be a success. It's like he's really married to this.
Yeah.
It's really all he's got.
Yeah.
This outdated fucking thing that was never okay.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
But Frederick reminds Trent that Pritchard is promising them genuine ghosts tonight, and Pritchard amends this 7 ghosts, and maybe more before morning. Frederick snarks this as very cheerful, but Pritchard continues that 4 men and 3 women have been murdered in this house. Trent then counts the members of the party, remarking that Frederick has planned it very well, with 4 of them being men and 3 of them being women, joking that there's a ghost for everybody.
Hmm.
I'd be a little worried.
It's a little too...
It's a lot. Remember on Shaun of the Dead when they meet up with that other group and it's just
Yeah.
that's them with the ghosts.
As Pritchard downs his drink, Frederick suggests that he take them all on a tour of the house and see what happens. If I'm a part of this party, I'm still on board completely.
Yeah.
I am, but I think the thing that worries me is that being the same amount of people, or you know what I mean,
But
as before.
I think I'd be like, well, he planned it that way. Like,
He planned it that way like a gimmick, or he
Yeah.
planned it that way to kill us all.
Well, I would hope not.
I mean,
More the gimmick, I think.
we
for
can
me.
kick his ass. Like, if we all stick together. Here's the thing. I don't fuck with saying shit in a mirror. I don't fuck with Ouija boards, none of that shit. But if you're offering this amount of money to me to just stay in this house, I can't say no to that. Like, I'm still on board.
if you're going to get killed or not. We don't know.
I
It's
am
50-50.
a poor. And then the money will go to you guys.
It is next of kin, they said.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm sorry, but honestly, nothing out of the ordinary for me has happened yet. This is just still an old-fashioned ghost party that we're having.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I would probably be crying and vomiting.
Really?
Once it got dark. Yes.
dude, I'd be like, is that fucking Vincent Price?
like, no,
this
no,
is the craziest.
no.
Yeah, sure, we'll hang out. Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
that's sad.
No.
Let's not
Let's not
speak
do that.
ill of that. Of
No,
that
but
man.
I'd be terrified. But yeah, you have to. That's like $100,000 for us.
Yeah.
Look, I got to be honest. I even put the money to the side. This just sounds like a fun experience. I haven't heard anything that has upset me yet.
Yeah, but you don't really believe in anything either.
I believe in more things than you think. I believe in love. I
All
believe in...
right. That's enough. What happens next?
But look, with the ghouls and everything, even with the story that they're saying, I would be up to staying the night here.
I would do it for the money, but I'd be very scared, and Pritchard would really be throwing my vibes off.
I would think that Pritchard was hired.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
And that he's playing it up because before Frederick even made his appearance, he's already telling ghost tales. So I'm like, oh, he's just setting the vibe, trying to get us to where he's like, Frederick's like, look, I only brought $40,000. So at least scare one of them enough to not want to stay.
Yeah.
I would think that he was hired to kind of make it to where he didn't have to spend as much money at the end of the night.
Okay.
I think the only thing that would give me pause is the fact that we are all strangers who have never met this man before.
Yes.
I think that if we were all friends and it's like, oh, Frederick's throwing a party and it's this whatever,
Yeah.
there's obviously less cause for
Well,
concern.
duh.
Well, yeah.
But this is just like in that movie, Would You Rather?
Oh,
when they did.
right. It's nothing like that middle of the road film.
Whoa! I'm offended.
But the group follows Pritchard into a parlor where he directs their attention to a large stain in the ceiling. He reveals that it's blood, stating that a young girl was killed here, and whatever killed her wasn't human. Ruth takes a step forward, and a fearful Pritchard urges her not to stand there. Ruth reacts confused until a trickle of red liquid drips onto her outstretched hand. She stares at it silently as Pritchard laments that it's too late.
What the fuck?
The ghosts have marked her.
Oh, man.
Like, yeah. See, this to me, again, I feel like we're just having some fun haunted house things. Like the
Haunted house thing.
yeah, like the spaghetti is her hair or whatever.
Yeah, if that's how it's built,
Yeah.
fine. Sure.
I think it is like you said. It's just that we're strangers. That's
Yeah.
what I would be like, dude, what the fuck is that?
I love a themed event. This
Mhm.
is not being presented as a themed event.
And I'll be honest, even if we're with our friends and there's a themed event, how did you get your ceiling to leak blood on me like that?
There's a guy up there with like a tube.
No, I want to see.
But Frederick eyes the stain above them with concern, and Trent calls bullshit, attributing it all to a leaky roof. Ruth agrees with this assessment, asking who would want to haunt her.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Frederick assumes any self-respecting male ghost would, and he looks around with a smirk for a cosign, but literally nobody even looks at him.
He was really proud of himself.
So I guess that's just for me. Nobody even heard it? Okay. But Pritchard fears that the spirits could come back, and when Trent sarcastically calls him the life of the party, Frederick claims that Pritchard hasn't even gotten started. He asks Pritchard about the story of a man who threw his wife into a wine vat or something. Pritchard shares that happened in the cellar. Interesting.
Yeah.
But he says that there's been a murder almost every place in this house, opening the door to let everyone out into the hall. I will say it again, if I'm a guest, I'm putting together all the things that Pritchard is saying.
Mm-hmm.
7 spirits that have been killed, 4 men, 3 women. Then he's like, a murder has happened on every surface of this house or whatever.
Yeah.
No, it didn't. If there's only been 7 deaths.
He's putting a
Yeah.
little hot sauce on it.
Yeah. Which is why I'm like, how much is Frederick paying you on top of the $10,000 you're getting for tonight?
Okay.
You're an actor.
Yeah.
And you're doing really good. But the group follows Pritchard down a set of dimly lit steps and into the cellar. Pritchard peers around pensively at the equipment lining the walls and the barrels stacked on the wide open floor of the cellar, explaining to the group that all of this belonged to a Mr. Norton, who actually didn't die in the house, but he was electrocuted later.
Okay.
By his own antivirus, or
Pritchard passes a massive spouted barrel, winding a pulley that raises open the panel to a trap door in the floor, as he explains that Norton spent a good deal of money experimenting with wines, but his wife didn't think it was any good. So naturally, Norton filled a vat with acid and threw her inside.
for not liking his wine?
Just that simple.
Damn.
Oh.
The group stares into the opening in the floor, their reflection staring back at them in a slow rippling liquid. Pritchard explains that Norton's wife was supposed to stay down, but the bones came up. He remarks that it's a funny thing that none of the murders in the house were just ordinary, like a shooting or a stabbing. And as he sidles up to Frederick, he shares that every murder has been sort of wild, violent, and different. But behind them, Nora seems to lose her footing, staring into the vat. She almost takes a tumble into it, but Lance luckily grabs her, saving her from falling in. Pritchard rejoices that she didn't fall in, and Nora responds in disbelief, asking, "You mean there's still acid in there?"
Real acid?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Well, we can see it.
Yeah, but...
Goggles, people.
Yeah.
But I would think it's like that's wine or something. Like there's
they
no way
changed
that
it?
It's gotta be. I hope it is.
Well, unsure, Pritchard seeks to test it. The group darts their eyes around hilariously until Pritchard finds a dead rat in a trap underneath one of the old wine barrels. He holds it over the vat of liquid, releasing the rat from its clinched death and sending it into the liquid. The acid gurgles, disintegrating the rodent with a sizzle.
Yeah, it's real acid.
Nora clutches her hand to her mouth in horror as Pritchard explains that the acid destroys everything with hair and flesh, and it just leaves the bones. In the center of the bubbling bath, the small skeleton of the rat rises, confirming Pritchard's proclamation.
Now he'll never be a chef. But let's go on and close this back up. Like, why did we even open this to begin with?
Yeah.
It's part of the tour.
No.
And please wash your hands. You picked up that fucking rat?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Well, he tried his best not to touch it. He just... But the group stands frozen, staring into the vat, all except Pritchard, who marches over to the pulley, remarking that it's dry and dusty down here in the cellar. Even that, his reaction changed so quickly, it's like, you're a paid actor.
Okay.
He's like, it's dusty down here. It's like, dude, do you realize what you just did?
You just traumatized all
Yeah.
of us.
And in this house you own, you kept the acid vat?
Yeah, that is
All right, all right.
that is a mark against Pritchard.
But Frederick suggests that the cure for this is waiting for them upstairs. And as everyone follows him upstairs, Lance and Nora linger behind. And when everyone else has made their way up the staircase, Lance closes the cellar door. Lance asks Nora how she got invited to this party, and when Nora tries to exit the room instead of answering, Lance suggests to just let the group go on alone and repeats his line of inquiry. Nora sighs, a bit annoyed, repeating what everyone already knows. Mr. Lauren says that everyone would get $10,000. Lance adds that Frederick didn't say anything about being locked in, and Nora agrees. But Lance shares that Frederick just made a deal with him on the phone, but said nothing about having to stay the night. Which honestly is kind of fucked up.
Yeah? That's a pretty huge stipulation.
Yeah.
But Nora asks eagerly if Lance is planning on staying the night, and he confirms that he is, not looking to miss out on the $10,000. Nora cheerfully concurs that she's going to stay too, dreaming wistfully of the prize money. The two pace around the cellar together, Lance asking Nora if she believes in ghosts. Nora sighs a laugh, admitting that she doesn't know. But Lance agrees with what Trent said earlier. People can spook themselves, admitting that he's done it on planes before, seeing things that weren't really there. Like a gremlin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
But then he stops, asking, or were they? Which inspires a chuckle from Nora. Inspecting the cobwebbed barrel with his finger, Lance asks what Nora plans to do with her $10,000, if they get it. Nora worries what Lance is suggesting. Frederick has to pay them if they stay, right? And Lance puts her mind at ease, reminding her that the $10,000 to Frederick is like a nickel to them. Of course he'll pay up. But the pair continues walking together, Nora sharing that her family was in a car accident, and now she's the only one who can make money for them. Rather than expressing sympathy or commenting on this at all, Lance just looks around the cellar, remarking, "Wow, I've never seen so many doors."
Yeah.
I could not fucking believe this dude.
Still not commenting on the harrowing story that Nora just told, he opens up one of the doors, noting, "Closet?"
Okay. I'm going back with the group.
Yeah.
He opens another adjacent door, finding a large wine rack filled with empty bottles. But behind a third door, Lance finds darkness there, and nothing more. He steps inside, disappearing into it, and after a moment, Nora calls out to him, but before he can answer, the door slams shut on its own.
What a dumbass, man. I mean, like, we get to split his 10, right? Like, if he doesn't come back out of there.
Nora seizes the doorknob, trying with all her might to wrench it open, but the camera pans across the room, the flickering lights all around her slowly being snuffed out one by one. Alone in the darkness of the cellar, Nora peers into a doorway across the room from her. There, shrouded in shadows, Nora spies a nest of white hair catching the limited light of the cellar. The music rises tensely as a figure glides through the darkness, an elderly woman in a black dress played by Leona Anderson. Something interesting about her, she is the sister of Bronco Billy Anderson, who is considered the first ever star of the Western genre.
Oh, shit.
Damn.
But I believe she was working in film since 1915.
Wow.
But the woman, whose eyes appear to be white, stares in Nora's direction before retreating back into the shadows. Nora cowers against the door, not taking her eyes off of the doorway where she saw the elderly woman, but with all of her courage, she takes off running toward the cellar door, exiting upstairs to join the rest of the group.
That's what we should have done in the first place.
Yeah.
Yes. This was actually frightening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much. I was like, again, imagining audiences in 1959.
Yeah.
Because even right now, it's scary.
It looks really good.
Yeah, and it, like you were saying, it's got to make you like, what the fuck was I doing down here with this?
Yeah. And the like gliding movement.
Yes.
The floating. It reminded me of Bava's Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
The drop of water.
Mm-hmm.
But I just really appreciated this. But the group sits calmly in the parlor, Frederick walking over to light a cigarette for Ruth. But the serenity is shattered when Nora bursts in, breathlessly begging for help and revealing that Lance is gone. And there's a ghost. Trent rises from his seat, annoyed, barking. See what I mean? But Nora grabs him, urging him to follow her back into the cellar. The score grows ominous as Ruth and Frederick follow them, and a reluctant Pritchard joins them too. Nora leads the group to the door, telling them that they'll have to break it down because it's locked. But as soon as she reaches for the knob, to Nora's surprise, the door opens with ease. Frederick reaches a candle into a nearby light fixture, lighting their way through the darkness of the room with his flickering flame as the score sizzles suspensefully. A few steps into the room, Frederick and Trent find Lance collapsed on the floor. They help him to his feet, asking if he's all right, and he jests that it's nothing a little money won't cure.
I know you're trying to play it off, but this was real fucking embarrassing.
Yeah.
And you should be embarrassed.
Yeah.
Catching his breath, Lance assumes that he must have hit his head or something. But noticing the dead end at the other side of the room, Trent posits that the only way Lance could have bumped his head is if he ran straight into the wall.
Yeah.
He asks Lance if he did that, and Lance doesn't answer. But upon noticing a bit of blood trickling at Lance's forehead, Trent suggests taking him upstairs to give him a bandage. The men guide Lance upstairs with Nora following close behind, but Pritchard lingers with Ruth at the door, wondering why the ghosts didn't kill him. Ruth asks, "Who?" I don't know.
If I were Frederick, I'd be like, everybody get the fuck out. This was the wrong group to do this.
Yeah, I'm not paying any of you. That's done. But staring off, confused, Pritchard states that Lance didn't bump his head. They hit him. This only confuses Ruth even more. But ghostly voices echo in the score as Pritchard and Ruth ascend the staircase. But upstairs in the parlor, Lance rests in a chair, his suit jacket removed, as Trent tends to his wound, cleaning it and applying a bandage. Frederick asks Nora what she meant earlier when she said something about a ghost, and Nora describes what she saw, claiming that it was wearing a black thing that went all the way to the floor. That's not the most striking thing about what I saw.
Yeah.
I think it was terrifying.
Yeah, it was like a dress, I think. But after confirming that she was quite frightened at the time, Trent attributes Nora's sighting to hysteria.
Of course. I mean, she's upset and she's a woman. So yeah, she's hysterical.
But when Frederick asks if what happened to Lance could be explained away as hysteria too, Trent doesn't have a response. Instead, he just tells Lance to get the wound on his head checked in a day or so. But as soon as Trent leaves and Frederick walks to the other side of the room with Pritchard, Nora rests on the side of Lance's chair. He leans in real close and whispers to her, "Wait for me in the hall." Pritchard, however, attempts to pour himself another drink before Frederick snatches the decanter away. But with fear etched into his face, Pritchard mutters to Frederick that the ghosts are coming closer. Frederick just jokes that Pritchard really believes in his pet ghosts, but Pritchard assures him that by the end of the night, Frederick will too.
Ooh.
Yeah. I don't think Pritchard still is getting the attention that he deserves with what he's saying.
Oh, not at all.
He's still, and yeah, maybe he's had a couple of drinks, but his story is the same.
I think the fact of what happened to Lance, I might start thinking at least something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Lance went into that room and just ran into the wall.
Well, how embarrassing is that?
It's very embarrassing.
He's like, I don't know what happened. Stop asking me what happened.
No, Lance is like, definitely ghosts. I believe in it too. But as Nora exits the parlor into the hall to wait for Lance retrieves his suit jacket and puts it back on. Frederick offers him a drink, which he declines, but Ruth, who is seated near the fireplace, asks for another round herself. With the other guests preoccupied, Lance snatches 2 candles from the candelabra before exiting into the hall. But at the bar, Ruth asks Frederick if he's really going to pay anyone who stays the whole night here, and Frederick confirms that he will. $10,000.
Ruth. We've been over all of this.
There's a blackjack dealer that has...
Yeah.
Like, my God.
Well, I'm sure she can get a loan or an advance.
Something. Ruth wonders if there will be any red tape or delay, and Frederick just smirks, asking Ruth if she's in a hurry. Ruth admits that she is, and not completely answering her question about red tape or delays, Frederick just hands Ruth another scotch on the rocks, and she sips it worriedly. But down in the cellar, Lance and Nora reapproach the third door, which rests wide open. They step into the darkness of the room, Lance striking a match to light the pair of candles. He shares that someone or something was in here when he came in earlier, and he ponders where it could have come from, and if the door was locked, how did it get out? He comments that what Nora saw could have been a ghost, but what was in here with him certainly wasn't. Nora, taking a candle from Lance, admits how scared she was and shares that she isn't sure of anything. But they carry their candles over to the wall, Lance knocking on it in different spots, finally stopping when his knocks echo a bit more hollow than before. Lance notes that it sounds different, and Nora agrees. I want to talk about the subtitles for a second.
Oh, God.
Because they're knocking on the wall.
Yeah.
And it says knocking on wall. And then when it starts to get hollow, the subtitles literally say, sounds different. And then Lance goes, does that sound different to you? I was cracking up.
That's amazing.
Look, I'm Nora here. I get it. I'm all for the, hey, let's go explore, let's whatever. I think my hesitation again would be, I don't know you.
Yeah.
And the last time we just went and did something, you got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You left me on my own, and I saw a ghost woman.
Yes.
And a really scary dress, apparently.
You ran head first into the wall.
Yeah. And I was trying to kind of unburden myself and tell my life story, and you did not give a fuck.
It's sad when doors are more interesting than what I've said. But they step back into the cellar for a moment, Lance counting 12 feet to the next door, which he opens, letting himself and Nora inside. He walks forward, counting only 6 feet to the wall. He tells Nora that he's going to go back to the other room to knock on the wall, instructing her that when she hears him, to knock back. Lance leaves and starts to knock immediately, which Nora returns, but they echo eerily as she does. She meets his knocks lower on the wall at his instruction, but when she rises to her feet, right next to her stands the elderly woman, in that frightening black dress. Her hands like claws, her teeth bared in a snarl, and her eyes milky white.
I think the ghosts have a favorite.
Nora screams as the music rises around her, and the elderly woman glides across the floor and out of the room. Lance returns to Nora when he hears her cries of fear, and she embraces him as soon as he steps into the room, shrieking that she saw it again. But Lance exits the room in a hurry, the camera panning across the empty cellar, and there is nothing in sight. He asks where it came from, and Nora takes him back into the room. Lance is puzzled, though, suggesting that if it ran out of the room, he would have seen it. Nora counters that it doesn't run, it just floats. But still, Lance insists that he should have seen it. Nora realizes that Lance doesn't believe her, and he just chuckles, asking, "How can I? How can I?" God damn.
You gotta appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, I guess.
This dude sucks.
It's like, you're giving me nothing.
He's not great.
Nora just forces her candle back into Lance's hand, storming off and back up the stairs to the first floor of the house. But once she walks through the doors upstairs, she's met by Annabelle, who smiles, introducing herself, accompanied by a haunting theremin in the score. Annabelle recognizes Nora and says that she understands that this is a very unusual and very, very dull party, asking if she'd like to freshen up. Annabelle then leads Nora to what will be Nora's bedroom for the night, and once inside, calls it depressing. Nora looks around, though, seemingly impressed, but doubts that she'll spend much time here tonight. Is that her saying that she will leave and forfeit the money, or does this have something to do with Lance?
Lance might have blown it.
Yeah. That should have happened before, I think. But Annabelle walks across the room toward the window, remarking that it's going to rain and calling it the perfect atmosphere for her husband's party. As she stands at the barred window, Annabelle's tone shifts as she asks Nora in an almost accusatory manner, "Why did you come here?"
Ooh.
The lights flickering on the wall behind her, Nora states simply that Frederick said he'd give her $10,000. When asked why Frederick picked her, Nora admits that she doesn't know, sharing that her supervisor at work just came up to her and told her she'd been invited. Annabelle then approaches Nora, standing very close to her, almost in an attempt to intimidate her, as she asks how long Nora has known her husband. Nora stammers that she just met him tonight, but this doesn't ease Annabelle's suspicions. She asks what Nora was doing wandering around all by herself, but Nora corrects Annabelle, telling her that she was in the cellar with Lance, and she just left, that's all. Annabelle then scolds, "Don't do it again," with a stern stare, ordering Nora not to go anywhere in this house by herself.
Like, are you telling me, like, friendly don't go, or are you threatening me? I don't...
It feels like you're gonna kick my ass.
Yeah.
No, the vibes are off.
Yeah.
Nora appears puzzled, but Annabelle just suggests for Nora to fix her face, and she says that she'll come back for her in a few minutes. This only confuses Nora more.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But Annabelle puts it plainly. "You're in danger. We all are." Nora asks who is putting them in danger, and Annabelle just hopes for Nora's sake that she never finds out. But when Annabelle exits into the hall, she crosses paths with Lance, who approaches her with a warm smile. Annabelle introduces herself, asking Lance if he's looking for something. He answers, "Not exactly."
Okay. I thought you were into Nora.
He struck out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he struck out.
So we'll just pivot real quick.
Annabelle confuses him for the doctor, but when he tells her his name, she recognizes him as the pilot. She asks about the bandage on his head, and he excuses it away as nothing. He asks which room is his, and they just so happen to be standing right in front of it. He thanks her kindly, calling her Mrs. Lauren, but she corrects him. "Annabelle, Lance."
Ooh.
She opens the door to his bedroom, letting herself inside and sitting on his bed. She asks him about Nora and why she was so upset earlier. When Lance feigns ignorance, Annabelle comments that he doesn't look like the type to go around bumping his head, asking him what really happened with Nora. Lance spills that Nora thought that she saw a ghost, but admits that he never saw anything himself. Annabelle understands that Nora was just frightened then, and Lance adds that she was also mad at him for kidding her about it. But Annabelle's tone grows stern as she suggests that Lance doesn't joke about anything else that happens here tonight. Lance is incredulous, asking if she's taking all of this seriously, and Annabelle returns the question, "Aren't you?" Lance then acknowledges his desire to find out what happened to him, but Annabelle changes the subject, rising to her feet and clutching his hand, asking him if she needs help, can she count on him? Lance just chuckles, supposing that she can, but he asks what's really going on here tonight with this party. Annabelle refuses to call it a party, instead positing that Frederick is planning something, but she wishes she knew what. Lance supposes it must be something really big if he's willing to spend $50,000 on it, but Annabelle counters that money doesn't mean anything. Frederick has a reason for dragging them all out to this dreadful house.
Even if we're not dealing, like we don't believe in the ghosts and we're not hearing her say that, money doesn't mean anything, he's planning something. That's still something to worry about. Even he's very nonchalant a lot.
It's super concerning. He's also very chill after what just happened to him. Like,
Yeah.
just weirdly unaffected by everything.
After meeting Annabelle, it's like, I feel like we're just in the middle of something that we don't really belong.
Yeah. That's what, like,
I mean,
what's going to happen?
you guys get counseling or something?
Why are we here?
I don't know. But Lance finds this highly dubious, considering Frederick doesn't even know any of them. But Annabelle wonders if that's why they're all here. Lance asks what Frederick could possibly get away with, and Annabelle paces around him, sharing that Frederick thinks his big money can help him get away with anything, reminding Lance that she's Frederick's fourth wife. The first simply disappeared, and the other two died. She confides in Lance that she doesn't wish to join them, and as Lance pieces it together, Annabelle shares that all of Frederick's doctors said that his previous wives died of heart attacks. 2 young girls in their 20s. Lance asks how he can help her, though, and Annabelle just states that Frederick can become insane with jealousy, that nothing else matters to him, and she urges Lance to be careful.
Pretty sure that my husband killed his previous wives, and he is insanely jealous. So it's a really good thing that me and you are hiding alone in your bedroom. I'd be like, you got to get the fuck out of my room, dude.
Yeah. He asks if Frederick would hurt her, and before exiting the room, Annabelle admits that Frederick would kill her if he could.
So even, just like you said, babe, even more reason to be worried. And again, I think that is the feeling. We're in the middle of something. I don't think we need to be here.
Yeah.
And if he's willing to kill you or to get to you or harm you, and I'm in the way, chances are he's probably going to kill or harm me too.
I'm just hoping it's like one of those like dinner murder plays or something. But I haven't been fed yet. So I don't know, guys.
Right. When is dinner?
But closing the door behind her, Annabelle steps into the hall. But when Frederick's long shadow is cast against the farthest wall, she runs back toward her own bedroom, quickly sitting down at her desk and pretending to have been brushing her hair this whole time. Frederick enters the room, pleading with his wife to join him, as she's missing all the fun of the party. He then approaches her, excitedly sharing that Nora was almost killed by a chandelier, and the pilot bashed his head in.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Annabelle feigns ignorance, asking if the pilot is badly hurt, but Frederick assures her that the saturnine psychiatrist bandaged him up. But he asks sarcastically if Annabelle would like to go console him, as she does with most men, in her fashion.
God damn, dude.
He fiddles with her freshly brushed hair, Annabelle lauding his cleverness, but Frederick admits that he lies awake at nights, wondering why he married her, calling it a mistake. Annabelle just rolls her eyes, reminding him that he didn't marry her, she married him, and while it may be unpleasant, it wasn't a mistake. Frederick turns to leave the room, urging Annabelle to hurry up, but she just continues brushing her hair, repeating once again that she's not going to his party. In a low tone, Frederick returns to Annabelle again, reminding her that it's not his party, but hers, and she is going. When she refuses, he seizes her by the hair, asking if she's ready. When she says no, he wrenches her head back, asking her again, and she answers, yes, damn you.
This obviously was a component of the remake.
Mm-hmm.
I was still very surprised to see this happening here.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's fucking awful.
Yeah.
It was very surprising because, again, Vincent Price, I didn't really, this is my first introduction into his movies, but I wasn't, and I know we do see it in the remake.
Yeah.
But I was like, holy shit, dude.
Well, we were talking off mic in the remake, Famke Janssen kind of gives back to him.
Yeah.
Here, it's very one-sided and very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But he leans closer to her face, asking if she would adore him as much if he were poor. But he answers for her that she wouldn't. All she wants is to be a lovely widow. He releases her from his grasp, sharing that it's almost time to lock up the house, and then her party will really begin. Before exiting into the hall, he wonders how this party will end. I will say, for things that we learn later, the things that he's saying, he's very clearly, he's like Jigsaw. He's like 10 steps ahead.
Yeah.
And I think that he's kind of just having fun with the things that he is like teasing.
Right.
Yeah.
But down the hall, Frederick knocks on Lance's door, alerting him that it's almost midnight and that the party is about to begin. He gives Nora the same invitation, and she tells him that she'll be right down. But she returns to her belongings, and when she opens up her suitcase, the camera presses in tightly on what appears to be a ragged and bloody, decapitated head, its eyes wide open and staring lifelessly.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I'm like, poor Nora.
Yeah, dude.
Again.
She sees everything.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, this was a shocking thing to see in 1959.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting that.
No.
And I wasn't there, but I'm just saying.
No. Yeah.
I would imagine. These vampire allegations.
They keep coming back up.
Nora makes some very guttural noises, trying to wrap her mind around what she's discovered, before rushing out of her room and right for a set of curtains at the end of the hall. She stops, parting them and walking through them very calmly, as if she didn't just discover a decapitated head.
Yeah.
I was like, did you forget?
What the fuck?
It's like, what's on this side? It's like, dude. But she walks through this new hallway, reaching the end of it, the shadows of barred windows cast against her face. But suddenly, a hand reaches out from behind her, covering her mouth, and a man whispers into her ear, "Come with us. Come with us before he kills you."
What the fuck? I'm not gonna lie. I've seen the whole movie now. I still don't understand this.
It's explained-ish in the next scene, but I think that the person that did this was not the person they claim to have done this.
Okay.
But even so.
Yeah. I could be wrong, but I think you see his face, the person that...
Then I have no fucking idea. I have no idea.
That's why I'm like, I don't.
Well, because then that's like, why would this
Yeah.
person that we have yet to meet say that?
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I'm like, I still don't understand.
But Nora screams, wrenching herself away from the figure and running down the hall. The grandfather clock in the parlor ticks 11:45, and all the guests have gathered except for Nora and, of course, Annabelle. When Lance arrives, he asks where Nora is, and Frederick looks around puzzled. But almost on cue, Nora rushes in through the open door, marching straight for Frederick. She tells him emphatically that she doesn't want to stay here. He then holds her shoulders in concern, asking what happened. But before she can answer, the doors to the parlor open, revealing not only the figure that grabbed Nora, but the elderly woman who frightened her in the cellar. Frederick introduces them as Jonas Slides, played by Howard Hoffman, and his wife, Mrs. Slides, who doesn't get a first name.
No.
Well, she slides.
That's yes. That's how she's been moving all night.
Y'all are scary as hell.
Yeah.
But Frederick explains that they're the caretakers of the house and have been for years. He adds that Mrs. Slides is blind. Instead of paying this explanation any mind, Nora just clutches Lance's arm, insisting that she isn't going to stay here. Frederick walks over to Trent, remarking, "Well, Doctor, looks like we've got a real case of hysteria on our hands."
That's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough out of
God damn. Trent surprisingly declares Nora to just be a little upset, not hysterical.
That is surprising.
It's been his only line all night.
Yeah.
And I will say, if I'm Nora, I'm like, he also did, and you were right that we did see this dude.
Yeah.
Like, he also did warn me that
Yes.
someone was trying to kill me.
No, well, not only that, that looks like the figure I seen in the basement earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Why were you, like, an animal? Why were you snarling at me with claws?
Yeah, sliding.
Yes.
Sliding, yeah.
And how did you do that?
Yeah.
What's the floor
She
made of
has,
down there?
she has
Yeah.
wheels for feet.
She wears, what is it, Heelys or whatever?
Why are we not talking about the severed head?
At all.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that's kind of
And
important.
her reaction was bigger to the warning than seeing the head.
Yeah. She just went, ugh.
Yeah.
She's like, what's this curtain?
Yeah.
And then... But just then, in walks Annabelle in a beautiful black dress with a long satin sash tied at her waist. She bids her guests good evening, and Trent can't seem to look away as Frederick goes over to greet her. Standing behind her and holding her shoulders, Frederick introduces his wife to their guests one by one. After all of these introductions, the Slides still stand in the doorway in the same position they've been in this whole time.
They're ghosts.
Yeah.
I laughed really hard because after Nora realizes this, she whispers to Lance, "Get me out of here." But Lance is more concerned about the $10,000. Nora, however, doesn't seem to care, claiming that Frederick is trying to kill her. Don't know how she reached that conclusion.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know.
But as the clock ticks 11:54, Frederick asks for everyone's attention, gathering the guests around the fireplace. He reminds them all of the bargain they made about staying all night for $10,000 apiece, but he amends this, telling them that if any of them don't survive the night, $50,000 will be divided among those who do. That is an incentive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like you're trying to get us to kill each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it feels even more that way in a minute.
Yeah. Frederick adds that if he should die, and after a cheeky glance between him and Annabelle, he promises that they'll be paid by his estate. He shares that when the doors are locked at midnight by the caretakers, they'll all be forced to stay in the house until morning, and if any of them decide not to stay, they must leave with the caretakers now, as they won't have a chance to change their minds later. Frederick smiles, adding, "Because there'll be no way to get out."
Okay.
It's like, lock the doors. Like, I'm just trying to get my money.
It was almost like he was giving a promo for No Way Out.
This Sunday.
Yeah.
But Nora returns her attention to Lance, reiterating that she doesn't want to stay here. Lance just urges her to wait a moment, but before their discussion can continue, a foul wind blows loudly, whistling through the room and jostling a chandelier overhead. The lit wicks flicker in the breeze, but all is interrupted by the sound of a door slamming just outside of the parlor.
They fucking took off.
Yeah. We do see, because there is a shot of that parlor door, and it's empty now.
It was like nobody even saw them leave.
No. I do want to say, whoever responsibility it is to light that chandelier, god damn. That's a lot of wicks. It's beautiful, though.
Yeah.
But Frederick marches into the hall and toward the front door, only to discover that it is closed. And when he attempts to open it, he finds that it's locked. He returns to the parlor with fury, frustratedly asking Pritchard who told the caretakers that they could leave early. Pritchard assures him that they never leave before midnight, but Frederick counters that they've gone now. He stands at the table with the candelabra and 7 decorative boxes, confessing to his guests that he was just about to give them the option to stay or leave, but it appears the caretakers have made that decision for them, and they're all locked in now.
I think that this would kind of, like you were saying earlier, feeling like this is fake.
Mm-hmm.
Them leaving early, and I'd be like, you paid them to fucking take off.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, the timing of it, it's 11:54. It's not it's not that
They
bad.
never leave before midnight.
And he was pissed. He was like, who told them they could leave? It's like they left 5 minutes early.
She was ready to get them Heelys off.
Yeah.
But Nora, somehow not understanding what's happened, tells Frederick plainly, but I don't want to stay. Frederick tells her that it's too late.
Which he already said.
Yeah.
But Annabelle levels with Frederick, wondering with a sly smile if he's had enough of this silly game. She suggests that he order some cars for their guests and allow them to go home, but to pay them first. Frederick wraps his arm around his wife, who recoils as if it were a snake, as he reminds her that this is her party. Addressing the guests, Frederick claims that despite Annabelle's faith in his ability to do the impossible, they'll all have to stay the night until 8 a.m. But he shares that they have a few party favors for them and directs their attention to those decorative boxes before them, which are all shaped like small coffins. He flips each of them open, revealing a small pistol inside each of them. Frederick says that this was his wife's idea, admitting that it's rather dangerous, but he supposes that they all know how to use them.
So, okay, at this point, probably unless I'm Nora or Lance, who had some kind of weird experience earlier, I would be like, oh, these are rich people fucking with us and wanting us to take each other out.
Yeah.
Purge.
Yeah. Why are you giving us all guns if we're supposed to be afraid of ghosts? That doesn't track.
There's nothing about this that makes any sense.
No.
Maybe if it was like some Ghostbusters proton packs or something.
Something.
Yeah.
Something like before that.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh, this is to detect ghosts or what. Okay, but guns?
gun?
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, what am I supposed to do with this?
The bullets are holy water.
Yeah.
No, they're bullets.
Yeah.
But Frederick snags one of the guns from its small coffin, demonstrating by cocking it, aiming it at a nearby vase with the pistol itself far too close to Annabelle's face as he pulls the trigger. As the vase explodes into a mess of glass, Frederick smiles, revealing that each of the guns are loaded.
You did not need to do that to
No.
prove that.
Pritchard's like, hey, that's my mother's vase.
Not anymore.
But he passes his gun off to Pritchard, who comments that they're no good against the dead, only the living. But he takes the gun anyway. Trent takes one too, as does Lance, who convinces a reluctant Nora to take one as well. Ruth, who I forgot was here, also takes a pistol for herself. Frederick hands a pistol to Annabelle, who initially refuses to take it, but after reminding her that it was her idea, Frederick sweetens the deal, telling her, who knows, she may want to use it on him before the night is over.
Sari, play Seether.
She takes the gun, and Frederick pushes it away as he was directly in her line of fire. Pritchard, slurring his words as he downs another drink, urges the guests to throw these guns away as they won't do them any good. Trent concurs, but for different reasons. Annabelle approaches him smiling, waving her gun around, and asking if he approves of their little party favors. But Trent asks them to suppose for a moment that Nora had a gun when she encountered Mrs. Slides, who she mistook for a ghost. It's a real...
Yes.
She did kind of look like a ghost.
She did.
She did. She was turning into a monster.
Yes.
Ruth counters that she doesn't think anyone else would walk around in total darkness like that, and Annabelle adds that she's sure they won't go running around the house shooting each other. Trent merely offers, "Who knows? Fear makes people do amazing things." I will say that's a little fucked up of Ruth. Like, Nora's right there. She's like, we're not all that stupid. Just her.
Just the one.
But Pritchard just pours himself another drink as Nora approaches him with a question. She reminds him of the story he told earlier, how his sister-in-law killed a man and a woman and cut them up, that the authorities found hands and feet, but they never found the heads. She snarls at him, asking if he'd like to see one of those heads.
Finally.
Yeah.
She turns her attention to the others, repeating her question and ordering everyone to follow her. You're right, dude. The introduction of the slides would not take precedent of what I just saw in my room.
She's like, I'll wait my turn.
Yeah. I'm a polite
this is about
guest.
the slides right now.
Give them their moment. I've been introduced already. You know what's kind of crazy as well is that Pritchard, like, one of these heads could be his brother's head. And she's like, would you like to see what I saw? It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why is she being so hostile
They
to
didn't
him?
do anything.
No, and especially he didn't.
No.
Yeah.
He's been warning them all night. But before joining the others and heading upstairs, Annabelle returns her gun to Frederick, assuring him that she really won't need it tonight. He places it back into its coffin, closing it, before heading upstairs with the rest of the guests.
I do want one of those little coffin things.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could put a lot of things in there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I will say I thought him putting the gun in there and the shot kind of focusing in on him doing it would lead to something.
No.
Yeah.
Not really. Just Annabelle no longer has a gun. Next scene. But in Nora's bedroom, the guests stand in the hall, Nora inviting Pritchard to have a look inside of her suitcase. He does as told, lifting it open and finding nothing but Nora's clean and pristine garments. It's even more fucked up that everything's clean.
Yeah. It's like nothing was ever there.
Yeah.
I'm like, of course, though. Of course the head wasn't going to be there. And now you're never beating those hysterical allegations.
Yeah. Well, that's why the housekeepers left a little early. They went, cleaned up the head. And
They're
then
like, we got to get the fuck out of here.
But Nora stands perplexed, certain that she found a woman's head in there before. Trent attempts to soothe Nora, telling her that he thinks she's just a little upset, and he asks her, "Would you care for a sedative?"
What the fuck?
What?
Yeah. Nora snaps at them, shouting for everyone to get out of her room, continuing her cries until everyone leaves and closing the door behind them. I will say, very interesting thing there. It sounds very condescending and messed up, but it is really good in the screenplay to know that Trent is in possession of sedatives.
True.
Ah.
It did remind me of Black Sunday when he did the exact same thing. And he was like, do you want to set it? I'll be right back. And then I don't think he ever came back.
No, I don't think so. But in the hall, Frederick wonders if it's all right to leave Nora alone, and Trent just laments the fact that she didn't take the sedative.
Come on.
Ruth wonders what Nora could have seen in her suitcase, and Pritchard offers ominously, "They're closing in on her." Lance suggests that someone should stay with Nora just to be safe, but Pritchard just slurs that there could be 1 million people around Nora, and if they wanted her, they'd still get her. Annabelle worries that Pritchard might be right, but Frederick assures her that he's too drunk to know what he's even talking about.
Damn.
Yeah.
As Pritchard wanders off alone down the hall, Annabelle returns to her room, promising to rejoin the group in a moment. As Frederick and Trent walk off together, Lance sidles up to Ruth, asking if she thinks it would do any good if she went in and talked to Nora. But when Ruth questions if there was really a head in her suitcase, Lance just sighs that he doesn't know. Ruth admits that something like that would put her right over the edge. No shit, Ruth.
Yeah.
Hot take coming from Ruth.
I think a severed head would really scare me.
Really bum me out, dude.
But Lance asks Ruth if she can stay upstairs, just in case Nora needs any help. And Ruth agrees to, returning to her own room and telling him to call her if she's needed. How is that helpful?
Yeah. Okay, then I was like, well, usually wouldn't you stay with her?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or at the door?
Yeah.
Well, he literally said, "Can you go in and talk to her?" And she's like, "I'll be in my room."
But after exchanging a suspicious glance at Frederick, Lance returns to his room as well. Left alone in the hall, Trent asks Frederick if he's sure that there are only 7 people in this house, and Frederick assures him that he's positive, except for the ghosts.
Very good.
Yeah.
Frederick smiles, but Trent does not. He attests that he doesn't believe in ghosts, nor in frightening women, and he says in Nora's case, it's gone far enough, perhaps too far.
I did appreciate him calling him on this because if, in your perspective, this man is kind of terrorizing everyone in the house, and this woman is like, I mean, she saw a severed head. She's pretty upset.
Yeah.
That's enough. Like, it's enough already.
So if right now, and we know how everything goes, but right now, if you're Trent, does he think that not only is he orchestrating everything that's happening to Nora, but does he think that he kicked Lance's ass in the... But Frederick asks what he suggests they do, and Trent scolds, "Don't frighten her anymore." Frederick just smirks and walks away, not denying anything.
No, not at all.
But that just makes him look bad.
Oh,
Yeah.
But later that night, Lance knocks on the adjoining door between his and Nora's rooms. Very convenient.
I'm
Yeah.
as right now and as it goes on, I'm very confused about the door situation in these rooms.
Because I don't know that anyone else...
I don't know.
Yeah, they look spaced out, the other doors.
Yeah.
But theirs are they are pretty close, and they have the inside door.
Yeah.
But when she doesn't answer, he just lets himself inside, but he finds the room to be empty. He looks around for a moment until a closet door opens by itself, and there, hanging on the rack, he finds the clearly fake head of a dummy, the same head placed in Nora's suitcase to scare her. Lance seizes it by the hair, marching into the hallway and calling out to Nora. But when he reaches the parlor downstairs in search of Nora, he instead finds Pritchard resting comfortably in a chair. Upon the sight of the fake head, Pritchard squirms in his seat, and Lance demands to know what Pritchard knows about this.
I was going to say, why would you accuse him?
Mm-hmm.
I understand that he's the one that's been telling this headless story all night, but he's clearly afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and that, because I was like, damn, he doesn't give a fuck. He just grabbed the head. But again, even if it's like, oh, this isn't real. You know what I mean? You guys are scaring her. I felt like somebody owes her an apology.
Well, yeah.
And in this moment, I was like, oh, so Pritchard is in on it.
Yeah.
He is being, like, paid by... I almost called him Bryce. Paid by Frederick to do all this.
Yeah.
Because the way that he squirmed, I will say it was a guilty squirm.
It was a fierce squirm.
It was like, oh shit, they found the head. Squirm. But Pritchard just quavers that they've taken Nora, and in a little while, she'll be one of them. Lance attempts to move closer, demanding to know where Nora is, but Pritchard holds his knife defensively, telling Lance that it's too late. He'll never find her again.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I feel like I missed something.
Yeah. Because, I mean, yeah. He went in the room. She wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's a big leap between that and they've taken her and you're never going to see her again.
Yeah.
She just went to use the restroom
She
or
could have.
something, But Lance seethes that if Pritchard knows where Nora is, he better tell him now. Pritchard just repeats that Nora is gone with them, and there's nothing Lance can do about it.
What does that mean, dude?
Oh, no. But their tete-a-tete is interrupted by the sound of a woman's shriek, which is swiftly silenced. Fearful, Lance rushes out of the parlor and into the hall, where the camera follows him up the stairs, where he discovers a rope tied tightly onto the banister. His eyes travel up the rope to find a woman suspended by it, hanged by the neck, swaying barefoot in a white nightgown. And I will say this white nightgown is very similar to what was in Nora's suitcase.
Okay. I thought that's what was going on here.
Yes. The music howls eerily as Lance whispers, Nora. Trent approaches the body from the other side of the hall, and after a moment of stunned horror, orders Lance to unfasten the rope and let the body down. Lance unties it and eases the woman's corpse into Trent's arms. Trent then carries her to a nearby bedroom, resting her lifelessly on the bed. When Lance joins Trent, he turns his eyes to the body of the victim, and confusion fills his face as he turns back to Trent. But the men are soon joined by Frederick, who asks if the body was that of Nora. But as he peers between the men and onto the bed, he discovers the hanged woman was Annabelle. Trent announces that Annabelle is dead, claiming that she hanged herself. Frederick mutters breathlessly, "Suicide."
I will say, when this is done, the version of it in the remake, I will say, A, much more dramatic.
Yeah.
Yes.
B, Price cared. He was upset. It was a moment of, yeah, they have this really toxic dynamic, but he loves his wife. This, he's like, well, damn, number 4, I guess. Like, he does not seem to give a fuck.
And what's weird is even when he's coming into the room, he's basically like, "Is that Nora?" That
Yes,
true.
And then he sees it's his wife, and he's like, "Oh,
damn, dude."
That really is just my note. I'm like, they're very super chill for what is happening right now.
Especially her husband.
Yeah.
And also, isn't it really quick to assume what happened on behalf of Trent and Frederick?
Yes.
Especially with Pritchard going on all night about what's been going on with the spirits.
Yeah.
And what happened to Lance. And like, I don't understand why they're like, wow, I guess that open and shut case.
Yeah.
But Lance sneaks out of the room, closing the door behind him and kind of milling about in the hall. But he suddenly stops dead in his tracks when he notices motion behind the curtain at the other end of the hall. He creeps toward it, the camera following him in a tracking shot. But before he can reach the curtain, a harsh whisper stops him. It's Nora. She pleads with Lance to hide her, and without providing any explanation, Lance takes her to her room. Once there, Nora retreats to the bed, clutching her throat and tearfully muttering, "He tried to kill me." She says that he grabbed her and choked her and put her in that room, and then he went away and left her there. He thought that she was dead.
What?
Yeah.
When?
Yeah.
Where?
Who?
How?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
I don't know. But Lance crouches next to her, pleading to know who did it, and Nora finally reveals her attacker, Mr. Lauren. Lance asks Nora if she's sure, and Nora admits that she doesn't know, claiming that it was dark, but it must have been him.
All right.
Yeah.
It's a little flimsy.
Yeah, that's different.
Lance asks if anyone has seen her since he left her there, and Nora shares that she heard some people in that room, but she went by and nobody saw her. To Nora's horror, Lance reveals that Annabelle is dead, sharing that Frederick claims it was suicide, but he thinks that somebody murdered her. Nora assumes it was Frederick.
Well, naturally. It must have been him.
But Lance rises to lock the door before checking the windows, which are barred. When Lance hears distant knocking, he returns to his room through the adjoining door, and when he answers it, he finds Trent there. Trent assumes that Lance has come to the same conclusion that he has, and he suggests that they all have a meeting in the living room to discuss what to do. Lance agrees, but when Trent leaves, he locks the door behind him and returns to Nora's room. He shares that he has to go downstairs to meet with Trent, but urges Nora to lock herself in and stay here. He supposes if Frederick thinks that Nora is dead, then he won't come back for her, but he promises to return as soon as he can. He holds her gently, assuring her that she'll be all right. But before he leaves, he reminds her of her pistol, telling her that if she has to, she needs to use it.
But you guys didn't even wait for dude to leave. You closed your door, locked it, came, opened the door, closed it, and then, hey, I'm going to go downstairs.
Yeah.
Like, they can hear you out there.
He's right there.
Yeah, he's even if he took a couple steps, what was that? Is that a door?
That's strange.
Yeah.
They have an adjoining door?
Yeah.
But Lance exits into the hall, offering Nora a comforting smile before closing the door behind him. The music rises mysteriously as Frederick exits his room quietly, watching for Lance to leave before returning to the room where Annabelle lies still in bed. He pulls back the canopy curtain to find her there, remarking that she's so beautiful, so greedy, so cold.
What a eulogy.
A shadow is suddenly cast over Annabelle's body, and Frederick turns around to find Pritchard gawking at her.
He was like, damn.
Annabelle's dead? Nobody told him.
Oh, yeah, he's been drinking downstairs.
Frederick seizes Pritchard by the throat with a musical flourish, demanding to know what he's doing here.
He's never going to beat those strangulation accusations now.
His eyes bulging, Pritchard insists that Annabelle isn't here anymore and that she's joined them. But Frederick has had enough, condemning Pritchard as a drunk, ordering him never to come back and throwing him out of the room. I think he was really choking this dude because his eyes looked really like it was bad. I was like, is he okay?
Yeah.
You know, back then, he probably was.
Maybe. And he's just been trying to help the whole time. I understand he's drunk now, but it sounds, again, he wasn't being a disturbance. He's just like, look, this happened here.
Yeah.
I'm afraid for all of us. This happened here. I'm afraid for all of us. And it's like, sit down and shut up.
Yeah. Oh, don't stand there. Well, too late for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the first thing that confirms my suspicions, you choke me?
Yeah.
What the hell?
It's not a good look.
But Frederick closes the curtain on the bed once again, following Pritchard into the parlor with the rest of the guests.
I like how they all walk in there like nothing has just happened.
Yeah. But Lance takes a seat next to Ruth, who I forgot was there. Pritchard asks where Nora is, which makes Lance quite nervous, but Trent says that he didn't disturb her since he didn't think it concerned her. How does it not?
Yeah.
But upon hearing this, Lance calms down, smoking his cigarette. Trent demands to know if there's a way out of the house, but Pritchard laments that there isn't. Lance suggests breaking out, but Pritchard reminds him that the only door to the outside is made of steel, and the bars at the windows are set in solid stone. Trent assures Pritchard that he's not afraid of his ghosts, but he is afraid.
Fair.
Yeah.
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 He states that when they all arrived here earlier, the only thing they had in common was the $10,000 they'd receive if they stayed. But now they share something else, the death of Annabelle Lauren. He recollects that so far tonight, one of them was almost killed by a falling chandelier, one was mysteriously slugged, and one was driven to the brink of absolute hysteria, and one of them is dead. He laments the absurdity that they must stay here another 6 hours, and Pritchard weighs this. 6 hours. 6 of them. That's time enough.
All right.
You gotta stop talking.
Yeah. What does that mean, dude?
I don't
You've
know.
lost your talking
Yeah.
privileges. I thought more was going to come of that.
Mhm.
It doesn't. But in him detailing all of that, first of all, how does this not concern Nora
Mhm.
when she was expressed in the things that have happened to people? And are we forgetting that the ceiling bled on Ruth? Because nobody's talking about
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. And you know what's odd, especially with it concerning Nora? He listed 4 things, and 2 of them were Nora.
Yes. That's why when you were talking, I was like, wait.
But Trent asks who among them will be next, and how will it happen? But Frederick has a question of his own. When Trent arrived on the scene, did he see anything that Annabelle could have jumped from to hang herself? Trent admits that he didn't, and neither did anyone else. And since nothing was there, Frederick wonders how Annabelle got up there in the first place. Trent shares in Frederick's confusion, commenting that she couldn't have pulled herself up there or dropped from the ceiling. He asks Frederick if he thinks that his wife killed herself, and Frederick doesn't. He believes she was murdered by one of the guests. After shots of each of them, Trent turns his suspicions to Frederick instead, as he's the only one among them with a motive for murder. Frederick rises nervously from his seat, asking, what husband at one time hasn't wanted to kill his wife? And What husband hasn't had 1,000 opportunities to do it in such a way that he'd never be suspected?
Rob.
Rob White?
Rob
What's
White?
going on? Not a good look, I'd say.
No, not a good joke to make right now.
No.
That's not.
No.
Yeah.
This is how you're defending yourself.
Yeah.
And that's like Trent literally says, you have motive. He's like, look, we all want to kill our wives. And we've all had plenty of
Right,
opportunities.
we all got guns, right, guys?
Yeah, right? Huh? But retrieving a cigarette, Frederick assures them that he's not so foolish as to kill his wife this way.
He's like, another way, yeah.
But Trent explains that the fact remains that Frederick or one of them is the murderer, which is a matter for the police. But due to their circumstances, the police can't be contacted until the morning.
What?
He said no electricity and no phone.
Oh, my God.
Did the caretakers just flip a
know,
switch
I
on their way
know.
out?
That's what I don't understand.
Like, do what he said. Trent bemoans that what once began as a silly party thrown by an eccentric has roped them all into murder. Lance suggests that Pritchard may be right, and if another murder is in the works, they can stop it before it happens. Ruth confusedly asks, another murder?
Ruth, go to bed.
Where have you been?
I don't know.
No, it's like, seriously though, Ruth, we haven't seen you for
Yeah,
I don't know how long.
Where have you been? And who might you be?
But Lance walks over to Frederick, suggesting that maybe one of them saw too much. Frederick just smokes his cigarette as Trent wonders why a millionaire would want to give each of them $10,000 to spend a night in a gloomy old house to begin with. But Frederick interrupts Trent, wondering if he's finished trying him and if the verdict is guilty of murder. But fed up, Lance says that they aren't getting anywhere, and the bottom line is that one of them is guilty and the rest are innocent. So what they have to do for the next 6 hours is protect themselves from each other. Ruth asks if Lance really thinks. But Lance says that he doesn't think anything, sharing that he plans to go up to his room, and if anyone comes in, he'll shoot them.
I mean, everybody stay in your own fucking area.
Yeah.
And 6 hours is not that long. Build a house in The Sims. It'll go by. It'll go by in no time, and it'll be morning.
Trent realizes that if they all stay in their rooms, they'll be safe, because an innocent person would have no reason to leave their room, and the guilty would admit their guilt if they did. And considering they all have guns, they all agree to these terms. Ruth just wishes the night was over before heading over to the staircase. But before Pritchard leaves the three men in the parlor, he reminds them that rooms or guns don't make any difference. The spirits aren't through with them yet. But they all climb the stairs together, returning to their separate rooms as the camera follows them down the hall. Pritchard departs first, decrying that there's no use in even saying goodnight. Ruth, though, offers the men a goodnight before entering her room. Lance parts company silently, eyeing Frederick suspiciously before closing his door behind him. But when Trent reaches for his bedroom door, Frederick watches him intently, bidding him goodnight before he enters his room. Left alone in the hall, Frederick walks slowly into his own bedroom, and upon finding the 2 champagne glasses from earlier, he picks up the one that Annabelle drank from and shatters it against the wood. But in his room, Pritchard sits facing his bedroom door, aiming his pistol at it, even though he should be the last person doing so.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're right. He's the only one that. God damn it.
But Trent lights a candle in his room, removing his wristwatch and frantically writing a few notes on a small pad after checking the time. But suddenly, his doorknob begins to turn on its own. He eyes it fearfully, rushing to unlock it, and he peers out into the hall to find no one there. He locks it again, the music rising mysteriously in the score. That's never explained.
No, it's not. And I was like, why the hell would he open the door?
Yeah.
Without his gun, I don't think he armed himself.
Oh, yeah.
That's the whole point of all of this.
Yeah.
Ruth, however, eyes her pistol in her room before setting it down, pacing around nervously, clutching her hands. But suddenly, in a tight shot, We see a dark liquid dripping onto the back of her hand. She looks up fearfully at the ceiling, only to find a large stain spread above her. She gasps, reaching for tissues to frantically clean her hand of the murky liquid.
I thought that this was genuinely scary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that means it moved. The spot moved.
It's following
yeah,
her.
because it wasn't there. I mean, it was down.
Right.
Stairs, right? It was
I
down.
guess, but in all fairness, we've never seen Ruth's room.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I'm going to take it as it wasn't there.
but Lance knocks on the adjoining door in his room and gets Nora's attention. She opens the door for him and he checks on her, telling her that everyone else is locked in their rooms. But Nora says that she's been thinking. It was so dark down there that maybe it wasn't Frederick who attacked her. Lance doesn't want to hear it, though, telling her that it was Frederick. He tried to kill her, and he did kill Annabelle.
Where's your evidence?
Yeah.
He wrenches the curtains open, and lightning flashes through the bars as Nora asks how he can be so sure. Lance shares that Annabelle tried to warn him and asked him for his help. As thunder crackles, Lance says that Trent thinks Frederick is going to try to kill one of them, too. That was you. Don't put this on Trent.
It's like, that's dumb, right?
Yeah.
Right? What Trent said? What do you think?
Unless
Unless you agree, then maybe I do too.
Lance insists that there has to be a way out of here, and he promises that he's going to find it before Frederick can get them. When Nora suggests that she come with him, Lance assures her that she's safer here than anywhere else. He's like, I can't protect you.
Yeah.
I'm going to run right into a wall or something.
I've done it before.
But he orders her to lock herself in and keep quiet, promising that if he finds a way out, he'll come back to get her. As the storm rages outside, Lance exits into the hall, walking towards the curtains that he saw moving earlier. With the bars of the windows casting their shadow against the wall, Lance discovers a hidden panel, sliding it open to reveal a secret passage. The score screeches as Lance enters, the wall sealing shut behind him.
If anyone was watching, they would have seen this man exit out of her room.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Aren't you supposed to be in your room?
Yeah?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
And honestly, this fucking secret passage is to no consequence.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah.
It's just like a waiting room, I think. As the storm continues, Nora paces pensively around her room when suddenly all of the lights go out. And I have to add that for some reason, the subtitles said, something about to happen. I'm like, don't tell me that.
Yeah.
Don't give away. You can't do that.
Well, you ruined it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Like, oh, watch this.
Yeah, dude, what?
Yeah.
Is this my friend?
Yeah.
That was just for them.
And who's captioning this?
Don't know. But in flashes of lightning, Nora watches as a rope launches upward through her barred window, slinking across the ground like a snake. She gasps as the rope wraps around her feet, cinching around her ankles.
Nora, move!
I know.
Instead of doing anything about it, Nora just looks up at the window, where through the storm, Annabelle glides toward the bars from the outside, her face stoic as thunder crashes and lightning flashes around her.
This is genuinely frightening.
Yeah.
And it did remind me of Salem's Lot.
Fair, yeah.
Okay.
Nora cowers fearfully as Annabelle glides away, the rope releasing from Nora's ankles and returning through the bars of the window. Nora grabs her gun, seemingly planning to shoot Annabelle's ghost.
As one does.
But before she can, the apparition has completely disappeared. Nora unlocks her door and rushes into the hall, and when she reaches the stairwell, she's shocked to find Annabelle's body hanging high above the landing, where it was discovered. Annabelle stares at Nora lifelessly as Nora screams, backing away from her, and with her back against an open door, a monstrous hand suddenly reaches through the darkness for her. Nora shrieks, running downstairs and into the parlor, calling out to Lance through the darkness.
What the hell was that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What the hell was that?
It's overwhelming. It's overload, I feel.
That's what that is.
Yeah, that's a lot, is what it is.
And I was like, Annabelle, shut up. You're supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
Annabelle, Nora, shut up. You're supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
And she really did let that rope just wrap around her
She sure did.
and then come back off.
Mm-hmm. But the camera pans across the empty room, past the furniture, to an organ resting in the corner, which springs to life, beginning to play a terrifying tune all its own, which sends Nora screaming toward the exit back into the hall. Upstairs, however, Frederick creaks his door open, leaning his head out of his room, but retreats when he sees Trent making his way down the hall.
So Pritchard and Ruth are the only ones that decided to stay in the rooms as they agreed upon.
That's what they...
But the way that he ventures out, I'm like, does nobody hear her blood-curdling screams up and down the hallway on the first floor?
That was my question. You're telling me nobody hears this?
Not at all. It's literally just around the corner, I will say. And it's really funny, their conversation, what they say they did hear.
Yes!
Because Trent then knocks on Frederick's door, and he opens it to greet Trent with his gun drawn, asking if he's come to admit his guilt. Trent denies this, but claims that there's either someone else in the house or someone has left their room. He asks if Frederick heard anything, and Frederick admits that he did hear some organ music.
Come on.
You heard that?
Yes.
Come on.
And Trent adds that he heard someone walking. But both men armed. Frederick suggests that they search together, but Trent insists that they separate, as there might only be seconds left to save someone's life. Frederick accepts this, and the men part company, but the second Frederick leaves the hall, Trent returns, and he enters the room where Annabelle's body rests behind the curtain. He wrenches the curtain open, and gazing upon Annabelle's body, Trent whispers, "It's almost over, darling." He says that every detail was perfect, and we see Annabelle's chest rise and fall, her eyes opening as if awakening from a deep sleep, possibly from a sedative. She rises, though, holding her neck and asking Trent what's happening.
But wasn't she just in the window and in the hall and...
She was astral projecting.
Oh.
She's very talented.
Got it.
Trent proudly declares that they've done it, the perfect crime, calling it beautiful. Annabelle asks if she has killed him yet, and Trent says that she hasn't, but assures her that she will. Annabelle removes her garments, revealing a laced leather corset covering her torso. She then asks plainly, "Get me out of this hanging harness."
Oh, that's how.
Yeah, so that explains that.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
I have no idea.
It is right now.
Yeah.
A hanging harness and a very accomplished astral projector. And they can do wonders, man.
Yeah.
I will say, though, if I hadn't seen the remake before, my jaw would be on the floor.
Oh, absolutely.
This would have really, really been a huge twist.
Yeah.
As Trent unties the harness, Annabelle vents her frustrations at Nora, wondering what's taking her so long. Trent explains that at first he couldn't get her to protect herself with a gun, but after Annabelle appeared at the window, everything fell into place. And no, he doesn't explain how Annabelle did that.
Yeah.
Or why she, I guess, went back to sleep.
She was literally at the window, and then 2 seconds later, she's hanging in the hall.
Yeah.
And then she's also sleeping. So I don't know. She's amazing, really.
She can do it all.
But he tells Annabelle that she was wonderful, and that was just the touch to finally drive Nora into complete hysteria.
Naturally.
Free from the hanging harness, Annabelle assures Trent, her darling, that it will be worth all of their planning. She learns that Nora is now on her way to the cellar, Trent adding that she's so scared she'll probably shoot the first thing that moves. And Frederick, upon Trent's direction, is on his way to the cellar too. Annabelle worries that someone might suspect them, but Trent doesn't think that anyone could connect them to what Nora is about to do. He also says that they can explain away her faked suicide by saying that it was just a party trick with a dummy, considering he was the only one who touched her. And the subtitles said,
Oh, no.
"Because I merely want to touch you."
That's a little different.
That's very different. She's like, right now? We're in the middle of
We're
something.
doing something. My God.
I'll be honest. Again, and I agree with you. If I hadn't seen the remake or watched it so many times, 'cause I was waiting for this to happen in this movie because of how it plays out in the remake.
Mm-hmm.
This is not that.
No. I was like, God damn it, Blackbird.
But Annabelle asks about the caretakers, but Trent assures her that they don't know anything. Annabelle then wonders about Nora, reminding Trent that Nora isn't stupid. But Trent calms her nerves, telling her that everything they planned is working perfectly.
He's like, no, yes, she is.
Trust me.
And if the caretakers don't know anything, why did he grab Nora and tell her to get out?
True.
Yeah, because they would have had to have suspected Trent.
Yeah.
Someone.
Or at least...
Because he was like, didn't he say he's going to, before he kills you or something like that?
He's like, come with me if you want to live. Yeah. Or whatever.
And then they healed right the fuck out.
He's Terminator.
Yeah. And they just
your name's Sarah,
float
right?
out of there. Yeah.
Let's go, my terrifying wife.
But Trent says that Nora is sure Frederick murdered Annabelle, and she thinks that Frederick attacked her in the cellar, even though it was him. It's like, Jesus.
Trifling.
But now, he says, Nora is almost out of her mind with fear. The heads, the music, Annabelle's hanging. He's certain that Nora will shoot Frederick as soon as he walks in. Annabelle still fears that it's taking too long, and insists that Trent should be in the cellar with Nora and Frederick. This, I thought, was leading to another moment from the remake.
Yeah.
Because this seems very strange that she would send him to
She's
where...
like, no, you go. She'll shoot the first thing that moves. You should probably head down there.
But hurry.
But now you understand why she was the one that wanted the guns to be the party favors.
Yes. The two share a passionate kiss, and Trent does as told, instructing Annabelle to come down to the cellar as soon as she hears the shot. But we watch as Nora creeps slowly through the darkness of the cellar, the music rising tensely around her. Her eyes pan across the room as every light is slowly snuffed out, punctuated by the score. Suddenly, a figure appears on the staircase through the shadows, and when it reaches the cellar, it's revealed to be Frederick. Without hesitation, and with Frederick only able to mutter, "Nora, no!" Nora raises her gun and shoots Frederick in the stomach. He slumps against the wall, falling to the ground. Nora exits the cellar screaming as she runs up the staircase, but in an adjacent room to the cellar, Trent steps out of the darkness. He turns the pulley, raising the trap door to the vat of acid. He then snatches up Frederick's gun and drags him over to the vat. I don't know what their plan is, but I would think that if you're trying to get all of his money, you need to prove that he died.
Yeah.
You need to prove that he died. And if you're setting up Nora,
yes,
you need the gunshot that she shot from her gun.
Like, well, let's throw him in the...
Yeah.
Let's melt all his skin real quick.
I don't like...
It's like,
this
what?
is really foolish.
Yeah.
The perfect crime.
You could have just pushed him into the vat earlier.
It's like, we wasted a lot of time with Nora.
And you broke her psychologically for nothing.
Well, I didn't even think about that because I'm sitting here like, okay, you know, he's just gone.
Yeah.
No.
So I guess whatever. But no, yeah, you're right.
Now let's boil this body.
It's like, that was your plan?
Melt it down.
But as soon as they reach the vat, the lights suddenly go out. And in the pitch black room, we hear the sound of a man being strangled and falling into the sizzling solution. In her nightdress, Annabelle makes her way down into the cellar, creeping forward and looking for Trent. But her only response is every door around her creaking shut seemingly on its own. Her eyes trace around the cellar as the score screeches sinisterly. She steps forward, gazing into the vat of acid, which starts to sizzle, and from its depths rises a pale white skeleton, played by Skeleton, literally credited as Skeleton himself.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
funny.
And it's accompanied by frantic piano.
Cindy, it's a skeleton. It's just bones.
Dude, the crazy thing about you saying that is they literally made an IMDb page for this skeleton, and he is credited for not only this movie, but credited for Scary Movie 2. And credited for House from 1977, and credited for Army of Darkness.
Hey.
That's fucking hilarious.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, these busy bones.
Yeah.
He's an icon.
But its eyeless sockets fix on Annabelle as she tries to run away, and its perpetual smile shines in the light as she's unable to escape. Frederick's voice echoes through the cellar, emanating from the skeleton as he tells her, "At last, you've got it all. Everything I have, even my life." The skeleton creeps toward Annabelle as she tries to run away, threatening, though, that Annabelle will not live to enjoy it. The skeleton lays its thin fingers on Annabelle's shoulder as it invites her. "Come with me, murderess."
Not the hand.
Yeah.
Annabelle screams wildly, backing away in fright from the skeleton. Its jaw yawns open as she steps just to the ledge of the vat, fearfully shrieking as it comes even closer. The skeleton reaches out its hand, giving Annabelle the final push. She splashes into the acid, disappearing beneath its depths as bubbles rise and sizzle around her flesh. Through the darkness, though, behind a large wine barrel, steps Frederick, the puppeteer, wearing an incredibly elaborate device that allowed him to control the movements of the skeleton.
I said, you just know how to do that?
Yeah. He's been training for months.
Obviously, he was one step ahead of them, at least. But I can't imagine that you were this sure of what their plan was.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh, I'll get a skeleton and I'll rig it up. I will say, though, obviously the skeleton was on wires for the film.
Yeah.
The walk was incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant.
This was really cool. I did enjoy, you know what I mean, him coming out and having this little thing on there and him, you know what I mean, like you said, being the puppet master.
Yeah.
But it did leave me like, oh, so were you doing everything else in the house? Were you closing the doors? Did you make that stain? Did you like...
See, what I think is that was Trent and Annabelle trying to drive Nora mad.
Well, why were they fucking with Ruth?
Yeah,
she
well,
really was not bothering anyone.
Well, everyone's got to buy in. I don't know. It's a great question, honestly. I will say this with the skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
This was William Castle's immersive experience in the cinema that he called Emergo. And what it was is there was a black box next to the screen that blended in with the environment. And once this moment is reached in the film, the box would open and a skeleton, it was like an inflatable skeleton, would rise up on wires to the projection booth.
I love it.
And it was, I think, glow in the dark, and everybody sees it, and everybody, you know, gets their shit rocked because they've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
But I did read a story in his autobiography that the first time they ever did this, I think it was at the Golden Gate Theater. And it's all accomplished by the projectionist. He has to know when to hit the button to open this thing so that it sends up at the right time. And I guess he kind of missed his cue just barely. And so William Castle is there with the producer, and it says in the book, they're like, fuck. They're so mad and upset. But then it opens and then it closes again on the skeleton, and they're like, oh God, it's supposed to open. He's supposed to come out. And it opens and then it does it. Everything comes out. But then
oh my God,
their very first try, it fell on the audience.
Oh.
And so it didn't really work out as well as they thought. And I think he said it took 3 tries to get it right.
Yeah.
But after that third try, he was actually waiting. I think his daughter was about to be born. And so they're waiting by the phone because they're trying to get everything in order. And he is waiting there. And then there's a phone call and it's for him. And it's the owner of that theater. And he tells him that there are lines down the block that they have sold out every showing of House on Haunted Hill based on word of mouth from his publicity stunt.
incredible.
The only problem is after a while, and I saw John Waters said it in a documentary, he said that once people grew wise to this kind of situation with the skeleton rising up in the theater, kids would come just to throw shit at the skeleton.
Oh man, fuck off.
And then it eventually kind of just like ruined everything. But then, I mean, you're still paying your ticket to fuck up a skeleton.
Yeah.
So William Castle's like, yeah, I don't care.
Joke's on you, really.
Yeah.
That's so brilliant. I will say, in my memory, I thought that the skeleton was Vincent Price.
Yeah.
I thought that was the end of the film. I did not remember his puppetry and all that shit. And I think that it would feel more deserved if he wasn't such a bastard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, if it were more to where she was literally, like he was really trying to throw her a birthday party, maybe.
Yeah.
But he's fucking going in there and being a dick. And
pulling her hair and fucking trying to pop champagne in her face and shooting the gun by her head. Like, he's abusive as fuck.
Yeah.
And so we're supposed to be like, yeah, he fucking got that. Like, it's like, you all suck, you know?
Yeah.
But especially him.
Yeah.
No, yeah. And I think that's what kind of going along with it to this. We don't know if it's ghosts. We don't what we've seen so far. I'm like, oh, it's ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the skeleton came out, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then the same thing when he comes out, I was like, huh. But like I stated a minute ago, so did he do all of this? And again, I guess it was Annabelle and Trent scaring everybody to get them to do what they needed. But again, so he knew this, and then he's fucking just setting all this up.
It did bum me out a little bit that there wasn't spooky shit happening.
See, and that's what and we'll get to it at the end, because there are, to me, and if you noticed, even in the opening, it's not listed as a supernatural horror film.
Mm.
And it is called The House on Haunted Hill, not the Haunted House on the Hill.
All right, technicality.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's like, I never lied to you.
Yeah.
But this is exactly really the only thing that I remembered from this original.
Mm-hmm.
The remake, at the age that I saw it, is so ingrained. But when I'm 8 years old and I see a skeleton, that's my favorite thing in the world.
And it looked awesome.
It did. That movement, I will never forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Frederick winds the skeleton closer to him with the wires, clutching it in his grasp and offering, "Good night, Doctor. Good night, Annabelle." He admits that the crime they planned was perfect, only the victim is alive and the murderers are not. He notes that it's a pity that they didn't know when they started their game of murder that he was playing too. He smiles, tossing the skeleton into the vat. Which is really funny because they said that the bones stay. So it's really just arresting. It's not doing anything.
It's resting.
Yeah. But upstairs in the hall, Nora, Pritchard, and Ruth, who I forgot was here, stand at the secret passageway that Lance disappeared into earlier, attempting to slide it open. They can't do it, but it suddenly slides open on its own, revealing Lance on the other side. What has he been doing?
I don't... Just wait. He's like, "Whoa, it sounds fucked up in there."
Nora confesses that she shot Frederick in the wine cellar and she doesn't think he's alive. So the group rushes downstairs to find Frederick just hanging out.
Yeah.
Nora is surprised to see him alive, but Frederick explains that she didn't shoot anyone. He loaded Nora's gun with blanks. He says that he can tell them all now. Trent and Annabelle were planning to kill him. They failed. And Frederick has his story straight. Trent tried to throw him into the vat. And Annabelle also stumbled and fell into the vat.
Who would believe you?
Yeah. Nobody's seen that.
No. He says that he's ready for justice to decide if he's innocent or guilty. He walks past his guests, back upstairs as they all watch him go, staring at him in disbelief. It's like, that's crazy, man, but about that $10,000.
Yeah.
Are we still getting paid?
We earned it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, Trent's dead, so let's split that 50.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'll rest in peace.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Nah, fuck him. But Pritchard approaches the vat, staring into the swirling acid, muttering, "Now there are 9. There'll be more. Many more." Chains begin to rattle around him, and unearthly moans echo throughout the cellar as he fears that they'll be coming for him now.
Why?
Yeah.
Pritchard then stares down Linz, at us, as the camera presses in, announcing, "And then they'll come for you."
Maybe he lives next door to you.
Maniacal laughter fills the halls as the camera pulls back from the entrance of the manor, the door closing as we exit the house on Haunted Hill. The credits roll, the skeleton gets his proper credit, and I have to ask the customary question, what did you guys think of House on Haunted Hill, 1959?
So I did enjoy this. I'll be completely honest. The remake, I don't want to say I don't think tainted is the right word. I think the remake has imprinted itself on me so much that watching this, I do appreciate and understand everything that made, like, where the remake got all their ideas. But this was it is a shorter movie, but it isn't what I was expecting. There is no real ghosts. But I guess you're right. It's not a haunted house on the hill. You know what I mean?
But if I build a house on a haunted hill, I want a haunted house.
Well, I mean...
The hill's haunted.
Yeah, just
Not
don't
the
go
house.
outside.
Yeah.
And Pritchard thinks that it is haunted still.
Yeah, he's totally convinced.
Yeah, and it's coming after us, too.
Yeah. But this was really, really fun. It was good. I did enjoy it. I will say again, Vincent Price, his character, I was a little shocked that he was a bit of an asshole. He was an asshole.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, okay, I thought you were going to be like just a little different. But again, I think my image of Vincent Price is a little later on from when I learned of him and kind of know the way he was. But this is good. I don't want to repeat myself too much, but other than it having those scary moments and it being a lot of fun, there's a lot of things that they put in there that don't do anything. They're just there to be there. That secret room that Lance got stuck in. I mean, Ruth is just there.
Yeah.
David or Trent, Dr. Trent, he is there, but I mean, he's just kind of, when he does talk earlier on, it's just him saying a couple lines at a time. But nobody calls for help. And then when they do, nobody hears you. Or if you're screaming, nobody hears you.
Like, I heard an organ, I think.
Yeah. I know it's 59, but I mean, those were kind of small things that I was like, it did take me out of it a couple of times, but not enough for me to be like, what is this? You know what I mean? I really did genuinely enjoy this.
It's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun talking about it too. And as we're going through the plot, I'm realizing things that just did not pan out or didn't come to fruition or continuity issues or whatever. But I will say, to the credit of the film, when I was watching it, I didn't catch all of that.
No.
Because
Yeah.
it really is, it's a lot of fun. It is a little confusing at times, but I think that the ending, it's a really good twist. I think I would have liked it a little bit more if Vincent Price was that skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked a haunting element, because I guess we're supposed to walk away with all of that kind of being part of the ruse. And I feel a little duped in that regard, but I did have a really good time. And Vincent Price is captivating, iconic. I think that everybody did a great job playing their roles. I think that the roles, just for a couple people in the film, they didn't give them anything to do. Primarily Ruth. Ruth really said, "My name is Paul. This shit's between y'all. I'm going to be in my room."
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I respect her for it, but it's like, when you have it kind of an ensemble cast, they each need to play a role. And it almost feels like they just spread it a bit too thin because they didn't have something for everyone. But, you know, it was still fun.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are some things that are, you know, like, all right.
Yeah.
The thing with Ruth not really having anything to do, of course, I feel like that's the thing, is when you have this, she's a columnist. Her entire reason for being there, at least what she claimed, was to write an article about ghosts.
Yeah.
So you would think that maybe there would be a scene of her maybe interviewing Pritchard.
Maybe.
Something like that, just to add to her story, even though, according to Frederick, it's a fucking lie.
Yeah.
He's like, she gambles. But I think that there are moments that are kind of, and the movie is so short.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we could add like maybe another 5 minutes and give her a little room to develop a little.
Yeah.
But I think that my thing that I am very okay with Price, no, it's not the remake, God damn it,
Yeah.
that I'm very okay with, and it's Vincent Price, so it's really
Yes.
hard not to.
Frederick.
I'm very okay with Frederick Loren orchestrating all of this and there not being a haunting element. Is the way that he invites us into the party at the beginning of the film. So we're just on the same ride that all of the guests are on.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, that's actually pretty cool, and a very cool conceit to start the film with, where it's like, we're in the same boat as these strangers.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I have a lot of fun with this, and I will agree that the remake, it does hold a special place in our hearts, I think, probably because we saw it first.
Yeah.
And so that's the first time we saw the story, but it's so incredible to see where that story came from. And to see throughout this film those elements that they did take and turn into their own thing in the remake, too. But I guess we can slide into ratings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest strengths of this film is the spectacle and the performances.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of incredible, just fun moments. Everything going on with Mrs. Slide is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these shots of the cellar and the way that these scares are unfolding, there are a few unsatisfying things, like, did Trent or Frederick kick Lance's ass in that room?
That's true.
Or did he just run into a wall?
Yeah.
But that's really embarrassing that he's like, I'm going to spend the rest of this film trying to figure out what happened. And he's like, oh, it was so bad. I ran right into that wall. I hope nobody knows. But, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that Vincent Price, just every second he's on screen, you're watching him.
Oh, yeah.
An incredible performer that just every line is like magic from him.
Mm-hmm.
And you appreciate just the level, I guess, of gravitas that he brings to everything.
Yeah.
And it's unacceptable that it took 229 episodes to cover a Vincent Price film.
True.
Yeah.
Definitely, we got to get on that.
Well,
Oh,
we did.
yeah.
Yeah, we did. Next week is also Vincent Price. No, it's not. But no, I have a lot of fun with this film, and I think that because I do see in a lot of times, and they even said at the time that it's kind of spectacle over story,
Yeah.
where it's more about what happens in the cinema than what you're watching at the cinema.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I didn't have a Merjo coming out at the TV or anything whenever I was watching it at home.
Yeah.
And I still had a fantastic, very fun time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that there is something very incredible about this film, that its staying power through pop culture, it's deserved.
Mm-hmm.
And the music.
Yes.
Love the music so much. Really, the only negatives are a lot of dropped things. A lot of things that just lead nowhere at all.
Yeah.
I don't mind there not being a haunting, but I do kind of mind a lack of an explanation for certain things that are clearly ghosts.
Yeah.
Like that blood dripping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Pritchard right? Or is he not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe ambiguity is the fun of it, that you can be like, oh no, Price used this house for his own, not Price. God damn it. Frederick used this house for his own needs.
Right, right.
But there's also stuff going on here.
Yeah.
Is that possible? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Pritchard sure seems to think so.
He does.
And we did talk off mic. We episode 34, House on Haunted Hill, 1999. We were very incorrect with the scores that we would like to have given that film.
Yes.
So I think that we've all agreed that we're going to revise that score
Yeah.
while giving this score.
Yeah.
So firstly, I gave 1999 House on Haunted Hill a 6 out of 10. I can't believe I did that.
We were
Yeah.
trying to be more objective in the early episodes.
I think that's just kind of what it was.
That is still shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were finding our footing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for how important and the nostalgia of it,
Right.
I think I have to bump that up to, I'd say an 8. I would give an 8.
Okay.
And no, I'm giving 8.5
Okay.
All
for the
right,
extra point of
all right.
nostalgia. But for House on Haunted Hill, 1959, out of 10 skeletons on strings, I am giving this film 8 skeletons on strings out of 10. This film is a treat, and I love watching it, and I will watch it many, many times until I'm a skeleton. But I will now open the floor to you.
Yeah, I don't think anymore, I would say, besides kind of repeating what we've already said. This was a lot of fun, and you are right. Without having a skeleton, a plastic skeleton come out from the wall or anything, I still did like watching this.
Yeah.
And the ending, I loved that because I didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah.
I legit was not. I didn't guess. I wasn't sitting there. You know, most movies they follow a formula, and then you're just kind of like, okay, this is what's gonna happen next.
Mm-hmm.
This one, yeah, it's a little jarring sometimes. It's just like, well, what's going on now? Oh, we're over here. We're back over there. But even the ending, it was like, oh shit! Like I had no clue,
Mm-hmm.
and I really, really enjoyed that. And for it being that, that old, I was like, hell yeah! So the staying power, I understand, but yeah, the characters weren't as fleshed out. I mean, we spent some time with Nora and with Lance and with Frederick, and there are people that we do, kind of linger on for a little while. But again, the length of the movie, it's very quick. So we just get quick visits all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe another 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, something. Ruth, something. Let's do something with her. Have her do something. But yeah, I did really enjoy this. And I agree with you. I'm very, very upset with myself for giving the remake of House on Haunted Hill. I think I gave it a 7.
Yeah.
I think so.
That's crazy because I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
But now we've found, our voices and what we are and how much we do like these movies and how unapologetic we are sometimes for them. And yes, the nostalgia drives a big, big factor for this movie. Well, for the remake. So for me, I'd like to change that 7 to a 10.
God.
Because I love that movie. I'll watch it right now.
Yeah.
I'll watch it in the morning before work. I'll watch it when I pick up the kids from school. I'll watch it before I go to bed again.
It's a comfort film.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It is.
But this one as well is really good, and I love seeing where what I love came from. It had to start somewhere, and it came from here, and I really enjoyed that. So for House on Haunted Hill, 1959, on a scale from 1 to 10, skeletons on strings, I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. I did enjoy it. I wanted a little more. That ending did, honestly, again, I did not, you know what I mean, expect that whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, from us loving the remake and then how everything that happens in that shit is just going nuts in that movie at some points. This one, it does feel a little subdued from that.
I was going to begin my ratings with a warning that this may be a little controversial, but I don't think that I need to do that anymore. I think I also gave the 1999 House on Haunted Hill a 7. That film did something to me. That double feature that night, I remember going home and that night and for many nights afterward, staring up at the corner of the ceiling in my room, being fucking terrified that I was going to be sucked into the apartment. It was the first time I ever saw the shaky head thing. It was the first time I ever saw a lot of shit that is honestly now kind of staples in horror. I know that it is not a perfect film, but for me, like y'all were saying, it is a comfort film. It was a whole fucking moment for 10-year-old Reneé to experience this and carry it forward. I also have to give the 1999 House on Haunted Hill a 10 as well. Nostalgia is very fucking heavy with that one. The love for it transcends, I would say, it being a perfect film. An objectively perfect film. As far as 1959, I really, like I said, I had a really good time. I loved the entire bit with the skeleton. I do have my gripes with the story. I do have my gripes with the fleshing out of characters more than others. I feel like during some points of the film, characters are just confused. I don't know how Lance was lost for a good 10 minutes.
No.
Before he goes back into the cellar. Nora, I'm just like, girl, you know, I get that they were terrorizing her and astral projection is really scary. I really just wanted her to, you know, get it together. Pritchard, I want to understand more his connection. I know all of that with his brother and that his family owned the house. I don't know, maybe some more like evidence of what he's seen, because the way that he was acting, I don't think that even for $10,000 this man would stay the night in this house.
Yeah.
So I just want, that would have been a hell of a twist if it was him and Annabelle. But, you know, I can't rewrite anything, you know? Or if he came back, you know, in ghost form and saved people.
In an attic.
So like attic or whatever, and then trapped them up on, you know, the top of the thing.
But how do they get down, though?
How do they get down? I'm still wondering. But I would just be repeating myself. This is a lot of fun. I loved, like you were saying, T, the spectacle of it. I love what they did in the theaters, the marketing, just the genius behind that really fuels the legend of this film, as well as the involvement of the iconic Vincent Price. So on a scale from 1 to 10, skeletons on strings, with the utmost love and respect for the film and for Vincent Price and for skeletons and for William Castle being on his bullshit in the best way ever. But with the reality that I do have a lot of problems with the story. I am giving House on Haunted Hill 1959 a 7.5 skeletons on strings. I feel like after a certain point, as we were unpacking, the story really just starts to unravel.
It was like every other thing. Well, that's all from us at Pod Mortem. What would you rate House on Haunted Hill, and what should we watch next? Let us know on Twitter at the Pod Mortem. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and like our Stairhole Productions page on Facebook. Be sure to follow each of us on Twitter at TravisMWH, at Blood and Smoke, and at RealStreeter84. Thanks again to Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Please consider pledging to our Patreon, where you'll gain access to bonus content, our monthly schedule, our Discord server, and the opportunity to help us decide which films to cover. And if you're looking for Pod Mortem and Stairhole Productions merch, follow the link in our episode notes. Please stay tuned until after the music for a special thank you to our Wendigo Getter patrons. And remember, when presented with an opportunity that seems too good to be true, think it over. One wrong choice just might haunt you forever. Until next time. Thank you for staying tuned. I want to give a very special thank you to all of our Wendigo Getter patrons.
Woo! Yeah!
Great work. A special thank you to Chris Ontiveros, Kristen Lofton, Megan Martinez, Kimberly Bass, Sophie Hodson, Anthony Jerome M., Jordan Nash, Kent Morton, Lala Thomas, Travis and Nisa Hunter, Miguel Myers, ATX, Jennifer Perez, Allison O'Neill, Carissa, TJ and Angie Bronson, Gabrielle Trevino, Spooky Mom, Applin Ontiveros, Karima Rhodes, Antonio Huerta, Kimberly Kleindienst, Will Brown, Sydney Smith, Osvaldo Soto, Bobby Holmes, Donna Eason, JD Rizak, Molly Gerhart, Armand Spasto, Aaron Aguirre, Eggy, William Barry, Brittany Seaman, Charity Oxner, Amanda Six, Mandy Rainwater, Jordan Roberts, Dylan, Liz Heath, Spencer Montalvo, Pancake the Panda, John Ramos, Michael Newting, Alexis Roberts, Dan Laveau, Itzy M., Gary Horton, Leisha Olivier, Kate Lamp, Carlos and Sydney, Jessica Hunter, Helena Rudder, Alan Johnston, Mariah, Livy Fun, Scott Troutman Wise, Towton Watson, Mozzie Bear, Brittany G., Dave Burke, Adrian Stakes, Daniel McGinnis, Nick Spill, Emma Hagel-Kissinger, Valerie G., Emiliana, Brian Glass, CB, Taylor Santana, Will Lewison, Angelique, Smelly Poo Poo Head, Beth Bauer,
Cookie, Esperanza J, Jason Kyle OKC, Danielle Peralta, Brandon, Sawyer Reese Farr, Dr. Diva Loves Horror, Girl That's Scary, Cassandra, Andrea Simmons, Ashley Higuera, William and Xxena Rush, Ryan Brom, Megan Ochoa, Laura Lassiter, Eileen O, Marissa E, Sydney, Henry F, Megan M, Strangely Sarah, Christy Beck, Nancy and Andy, Amanda Lopez, Andy Terrell, Jason Hanovan, Katie K, Erica Morin, Cameron S, Nicole Stewart, Triss Wynn, K.87, Mariah Jensen, Lonnie Lono, Powell, Kayla E, Maggie H, Murder Stina, No Thanks Tom Hanks, Kevin McGonigal, Kristen Marcy, Ori 81 Boricua, Look Like That One Girl, Bog Boy, Felnez 63, Alita Pui, Probably My Jugs, Kate Thackeray, Wade Pack, A Lizard, Bay J, Jay Rich, Jen Lassiter, Topher Williams, Elena Metler, Jean Jacket, Valerie K, Christy Lee Kruger, Professor of Humanities Laura McCarricker, Naomi, Josh Smith,
Abby Kopp, Crystal 831, Skank Sinatra, Morgan Alexander, Tony Osteen, Julie Fredborg, Rihanna S., Daniel Taylor, Anna Kate, Heather Ortiz, Jen T., Kim H., August, Vengeance Spirit, Sam J. Green, Kelly Glazyface Mac, Jenny May, Zoe Marie, Glittery Fab, Malik Caselli Armstrong, Scarly D., Toya Shea, Katie, Martin Shaw, Star, Tyler J., Daniel Dickerson, Jordan Gaddis, Cam Davies, Patrick Hoagland, Raven, King Roger, D., Wesley Tart, Kristen Jackson, Jacob Nordberg, Spencer, Samantha, Damian Grant, Half Price Horror, Clemmy, Nisi Nay, Erica, Jason X Rules, Karen Burrows, 203 Duncan, Aaron Norman, Stephen Rogers, Victoria Smith, Corey Gillen, Patricia A. Graham, Erasmo Pena, Danielle Wright, Bud Hates Mushrooms, Tabitha Thomas, Connie Lingus, Becca Boo, Richard Murray, Irene, Sally Slater 52, and Jordan McCarthy. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank y'all.
Thank you so much. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we are so honored that you accepted the invitation to our party.
Hey,
Ah.
It'll end better. We don't plan on it.
yeah.
No acid bats here.
No.
Until next time.